Chapter 13-14. What are you looking at? Seeing Murong-Yu staring at her giant axe, the little lowly couldn't help but glare at him. Before the Heavenly Fiends sect issued the kill order, Murong-Yu and the others had already left the left origin city. Although they couldn't directly teleport away because there was no teleportation point, but with the cooperation of Murong-Yu and the little lowly, they didn't know how far away they were from the left origin city. After no one was following them, Murong-Yu and the little lowly naturally didn't rush. Even Yu Mengqing and the others came out of Hichu Luoshu. However, when he thought about how the little lowly killed an ancient sage with a single axe, Murong-Yu couldn't help but be shocked. His eyes glanced at the giant axe on the little lowly's shoulder from time to time. Therefore, the scene just now happened. Ruoyun, your giant axe really killed an ancient sage? Kurlan walked to the little lowly's side and looked at the giant axe with a shocked expression. Yu Mengqing and the others also looked over with shocked eyes. Although they didn't know how terrifying an ancient sage's strength was, it was 4 realms higher than them. It must be incomparably powerful. It's just an ancient sage. If it wasn't for the big scoundrel stopping me, the others would have been killed by me. The little lowly raised her arrogant little head, glanced at Murong-Yu, and then said proudly. Murong-Yu's face turned black. He couldn't be bothered to bicker with the little lowly. You're actually so powerful? Gongsun Ningyu walked up and asked curiously. The little lowly suddenly became bashful. Looking at everyone, she was a little hesitant. Everyone looked at her strangely. Just when they were about to ask, the little lowly spoke again. Not really. I'm just an undead realm expert. It's the giant axe's power that can kill an ancient sage. This giant axe ignores strength and defense, and is incomparably sharp. No matter what it is, it can be split into 2 halves. Ignores strength and defense? Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Murong-Yu and the others couldn't help but be shocked. The giant axe's power was really too terrifying. What did it mean to ignore defense? In other words, it didn't matter if you were an ancient saint, a saint king, or an ancestral saint, no matter how powerful you were, you could block or even disperse the attacks of others. However, it was unable to stop the giant axe's attack. The axe cleaved down and struck the target that was protected by layers of defense. Furthermore, the axe was extremely sharp. If one's physical body was not too strong, they would definitely be cut in half. The ancient saint from Skyfire City was powerful enough. However, his physical body was probably just an ordinary saint body. Since his defensive power was useless, he would naturally be chopped to death by the giant axe. Furthermore, the axe could destroy souls. Little Lowly's strength was still not high. If she reached the level of the Ancestor Sage or the Primal Chaos Ancestor Sage, she would be able to defeat the Primal Chaos Ancestor. Apart from autarchs and sovereigns, they were probably invincible. Despite their shock, the group continued to advance toward the Desert of Death. After several twists and turns, Murong-Yu and the others were still unable to reach the Desert of Death. This made Murong-Yu sigh in his heart. However, although there were all kinds of troubles along the way, his strength was steadily increasing. If it weren't for those experts from Skyfire City, I'm afraid I would have already ransacked the Pang family's treasury and used their sacred artifacts to cultivate. I'm afraid I would have reached the 5th or even 6th level of the Great Saint Realm by now. Murong-Yu thought to himself, a cold light flashing in his eyes. One day, he would return to Skyfire City. When that time came, he would raze the city lord's mansion to the ground. He wasn't that easy to hunt down. Anyone who tried to hunt him down would pay a heavy price. Fragmentary Star City is up ahead, Wen Yi suddenly said. Everyone looked over and saw a huge city in front of them. It looked like a prehistoric beast entrenched on the ground, emitting a powerful and ferocious aura. This city was even bigger than Skyfire City. Fragmentary Star City is the city of the Fragmentary Star Sect. However, anyone can enter by paying an entrance fee. The vast mountain range next to Fragmentary Star City is the Fragmentary Star Mountain Range. The Fragmentary Star sect is entrenched in the depths. When he was the only one who had been to Fragmentary Star City before, so he explained. How strong is this Fragmentary Star sect? Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. Fragmentary Star City is the overlord of the nearby area. Legend has it that their sect has an ancient saint ancestor overseeing it. However, the information I know is from a long time ago. I don't know if anyone has broken through to the Great Saint King realm by now. The little lowly's face was full of disdain. Isn't it just an ancient saint? You can kill him with a swing of your axe. Hearing this, Yu Mengqing and the others couldn't help but laugh. Murong Yu glared at the little lowly. This little lowly was too violent. She kept yelling about killing people all day long. It really made people speechless. Moreover, after she killed an ancient saint, she kept talking about this great achievement every day, as if the ancient saint really couldn't withstand a single blow. However, if the other party was prepared, the little lowly would be killed before she even had a chance to attack. Little lowly, don't cause trouble. After glaring at the little lowly, Murong Yu and the others entered the city. However, with several great beauties, a young beauty, and a pink little lowly, Murong Yu and the others attracted a lot of attention as soon as they entered the city. Murong Yu, on the other hand, felt many murderous gazes. This was because the goddess-like girls surrounded him, and they seemed to have a close relationship with him, which made those people envious and jealous. As for Wen-yi, no one looked at the old man. In this regard, Murong Yu's face was full of smiles. Sometimes being envied by others was also a kind of ability. Let's find a restaurant first and have a good meal. Murong Yu's divine sense spread out and soon found the busiest restaurant, Fragmentary Star Tower. Fragmentary Star Tower, 3rd floor. These people are too annoying. How can I eat when they look at me like that? Gongsun Ningyu said with some displeasure. Murong Yu ordered a table full of dishes. These were all delicacies of the holy world. Eating them could even increase one's cultivation, but of course, it was only a little. Yu Mengqing and the others, who had never eaten the food of the holy world, immediately ate heartily. However, Gongsun Ningyu soon felt uncomfortable. This was because since they came up, the people on the 3rd floor kept glancing at them. Yu Mengqing and the others had long been used to this, and they ate with a calm expression. However, Gongsun Ningyu was a little uneasy. She felt like she was a monkey being watched by others. Let's just kill them all. The little lowly glanced at those people, grabbed the giant axe, and was about to attack. Fortunately, Murong Yu was quick enough to press her down on the chair. Don't cause trouble. Murong Yu glared at her, then looked at Gongsun Ningyu and said, Ningyu, you just need to get used to it. In the future, these gazes will only increase, not decrease. Sister Ningyu, you're also a great beauty. In the future, you'll be even more beautiful. Unless you go out and wear a big black robe, these gazes are inevitable. Mu Liu said to Gongsun Ningyu with a smile. Gongsun Ningyu blushed, lowered her head, and ate silently. You people really don't know how to be romantic. You actually offended a beauty. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from the stairs, followed by a magnetic voice. Trouble is here. Murong Yu's heart sank and he turned to look. Instead, he saw a white-clothed young man of about 25 or 26 years of age, holding a folding fan in his hand, slowly walking towards him. The youth's appearance was delicate, and his skin was tender. From afar, he looked like a woman. If he disguised himself as a woman, his beauty wouldn't be inferior to Yu Mengqing and the others. However, this person was definitely a man, and Murong Yu recognized his identity at a glance. Behind the white-clothed youth, there were 2 other youths. One was extremely handsome, and the other had a rough appearance. However, these 2 people seemed to be the youth's followers. They followed behind him without saying a word, and they didn't even lift their eyes. After seeing this white-clothed young man, the surrounding people withdrew their gazes with a schwa sound. It's over, it's over. These beauties are going to be ruined again. Some people showed a regretful expression and shook their heads. Of course, these were all thoughts in their hearts, and they didn't say it out loud. This person's identity isn't simple. Murong Yu saw the reactions of the surrounding people, and he immediately had this thought in his mind. Brother beauties, this young man greets you. This young man has been rude. The white-clothed youth waved his folding fan like a weak scholar. After walking to a certain distance from Murong Yu and the others, he stopped and slightly cupped his fist towards Murong Yu and the others. His words were sincere, and his eyes were straight ahead. Murong Yu saw the white-clothed youth's gaze flash past his face, and he didn't look at Yu Mengqing and the others. With Mengqing and the others' beauty, he didn't even look at them? Murong Yu felt a trace of disbelief. There were only two people who would do this. Either he was a woman or he was a eunuch. Even the most upright gentleman couldn't help but look at Yu Mengqing and the others. However, since this youth was so generous, Murong Yu could only stand up and return the greeting. Brother, you and I hit it off at first sight. Why don't you come and have a few drinks? The white-clothed youth smiled and invited Murong Yu. Murong Yu was stunned for a moment, but soon after, he let out a faint smile and walked over. I am Bai Yixian, the sect master of the Broken Star sect. May I know your name? Murong Yu smiled and gave his name. At the same time, his divine consciousness spread out. Soon, he heard the discussions of the people in the restaurant. Bai Yixian, the son of the Broken Star City's city lord, was a core disciple of the Broken Star sect. He was a romantic and elegant man with countless women. However, each of his women was willing to follow him, and he never forced them. Soon, Murong Yu received some information about Bai Yixian. Oh? So you are Murong Yu? My apologies. Bai Yixian was startled, and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. Chapter 13-15. Over the course of a meal, Murong Yu and Bai Yixian had become much more familiar with each other. Moreover, according to the others' understanding, although Bai Yixian was also very fond of women, he had never used any coercive means. Although they didn't know whether it was true or not, at least Murong Yu didn't dislike him that much. Therefore, before long, they had become like old friends who had known each other for countless years. However, during the conversation, Murong Yu felt that the atmosphere was a bit strange. Logically speaking, it was impossible for a person like Bai Yixian to not look at Yu Mengqing and the others. Especially Yu Mengqing and the others, they were all outstanding beauties. However, Bai Yixian didn't look at them again, except for a glance when they first came to the restaurant. Instead, he kept looking at Murong Yu with a strange look in his eyes. After talking for a while, Murong Yu also knew why Bai Yixian had such a strange look after hearing his name. Because of the Tiansha sect and Tianhua City's pursuit order. However, Bai Yixian was only surprised for a moment and then returned to normal. He was a core disciple of the Broken Star sect, so he naturally had no interest in the reward of the Tiansha sect. Moreover, he guaranteed that Murong Yu wouldn't have any safety problems in the Broken Star City. Even the Tiansha sect didn't dare to be presumptuous in the Broken Star City. After drinking and eating to his heart's content, Murong Yu was about to leave. However, he was warmly invited by Bai Yixian. In the end, he couldn't refuse and agreed to stay in Bai Yixian's immortal mansion for a few days. Seeing Murong Yu agree, Bai Yixian seemed very happy. He hurriedly paid the bill and left the restaurant. Then, he led Murong Yu and the others to his mansion in Shattered Star City. On the way, Murong Yu and the others met with Bai Yixian some distance away. Big pervert, did you find that Bai Yixian is a bit strange? Some indescribable strangeness? Kurlan's voice sounded in the ears of Murong Yu and the others. She didn't speak directly, but transmitted her voice. I also feel the same. That Bai Yixian is a gentleman, but he is really too much of a gentleman. He didn't even spare us a second glance? There must be something fishy going on, Mu Liyue said. Situ Xian smiled and said, "Maybe he's interested in our husband." The girls looked at each other and couldn't help but burst into laughter. However, their smiles were so stunning that the eyes of countless men on the road almost fell out of their sockets. Although the big scoundrel isn't handsome, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Who knows, maybe she's really taken a fancy to him. The little loli kept sizing up Murong Yu as a crafty smile appeared on her face. Murong Yu looked at the girls with a dark expression and said, "What do you think? I did feel that there was something wrong with this Bai Yixian. Don't tell me he's prepared to deal with us?" Everyone nodded, but no one knew what Bai Yixian was thinking. The little loli waved the giant axe in her hand and said carelessly, "I don't care what kind of scheme he has. If he dares to attack us, I will raze this broken star city to the ground." Murong Yu glared at her and then quickly caught up. However, his thoughts were similar to the little loli's. In front of absolute strength, no matter what kind of scheme he had, he would directly smash it with a punch. Bai Yixian's mansion was not in the city lord's mansion, but in the east of the city. It was extremely luxurious, comparable to the city lord's mansion. After entering the hall, Murong Yu and the others couldn't help but be surprised. There were portraits hanging on both sides of the hall. These portraits were not sacred tools, nor were they decorations hanging in ordinary houses. These portraits were all portraits of people. Looking around, there were only more than 100 portraits in the hall. Each and every one of them was a stunning beauty. However, Murong Yu and the others soon found out. These portraits of beautiful women only occupied 1/10 of all the portraits in the hall, or even less than 1/10. As for the rest, they were all portraits of men. Every one of them was a handsome man. Seeing this scene, the faces of Murong Yu and the others darkened, and a strange feeling welled up in their hearts. How could there be so many portraits hanging in the hall of their house? Moreover, Bai Yixian was a man. If it was just portraits of beautiful women, then it would be fine, but there were so many portraits of men hanging. Are these portraits painted by real people? You've seen all of them? Lan Qir asked straightforwardly. Bai Yixian just smiled faintly, and didn't answer Kurlan's question, but turned to Murong Yu and said with a smile, "Brother Murong, what do you think of my portraits? All of them are handsome men and beautiful women, and I have personally painted them. Usually, when I have nothing to do, I would like to admire these portraits. Looking at these portraits can make my heart calm down." Seeing the shocked faces of Murong Yu and the others, Bai Yixian was very proud of his introduction. However, Murong Yu's heart was cold. A man staring at the portraits of men? What kind of abnormal hobby is this? Could it be that this guy really likes men? Murong Yu thought in his heart, but the more he thought, the more he felt cold. "Everyone, please wait here for a moment and admire these handsome men and beautiful women. I will go down to prepare a place for you to live, and will take my leave for the time being." Bai Yixian lit a sandalwood-like incense and then left. At the same time when he left the hall, Bai Yixian's eyes flashed with an inexplicable light, and then he quickly left. Suddenly, the entire hall was submerged by the faint, strange fragrance. It shouldn't be something like a sleeping incense, right? Murong Yu was a little vigilant at first, but later found that this fragrance was just an ordinary joke, and then he relaxed. Murong Yu didn't have any interest in the portraits of beautiful women. As for the portraits of handsome men, he didn't even look at them. On the contrary, Yu Mengqing and the other women were enjoying the portraits of handsome men with great interest. Soon after Bai Yixian left, a servant came in with tea. But Bai Yixian didn't come over. After a long time, Murong Yu felt a little thirsty, and unconsciously drank a mouthful of tea. He didn't know why, but Yu Mengqing and the others were the same. "Hey! What's going on? My strength seems to have disappeared?" Suddenly, Situ Xian exclaimed in surprise. Everyone's expression changed, and then Yu Mengqing also exclaimed, "My strength seems to have disappeared, and now I'm like a mortal." Before Yu Mengqing's voice fell, Mu Liue, Kurlan, Wen Yi, and the others, except for Murong Yu, all of their expressions changed. Their strength had disappeared. Bang! The little lowly, who had been carrying the giant axe, couldn't hold it anymore after losing her strength. She fell to the ground directly, and a big hole was smashed in the hall's floor. Murong Yu's heart stirred, and just as he was about to speak, his expression changed slightly. His strength had disappeared. It must be Bai Yixian's doing. Everyone was panicking, and some were angry. Murong Yu didn't panic, and his consciousness sank into his body, and found that his strength was still in his meridians and Saint Godhead. But it seemed to be imprisoned by something, and he couldn't circulate it. Murong Yu tried to connect with his strength, but he still couldn't circulate it. Bai Yixian. Murong Yu's face was black and he gritted his teeth. When he entered the hall, he had already checked carefully. Whether it was the spices or the tea, there was absolutely no problem. He didn't even know how he had fallen for it. But one thing was for sure, it was Bai Yixian's doing. His boat had capsized in the gutter. Murong Yu felt helpless, but more than that, he was angry. But the angrier he was, the calmer he became. His consciousness began to communicate with life force. At this time, a figure appeared at the entrance of the hall and slowly walked in. "Everyone, is the tea good?" Bai Yixian swept a glance at everyone with a smile, and then her gaze landed on Murong Yu. Her eyes were full of wanton desire. Wait. Bai Yixian's eyes actually had a trace of lust. At this time, Bai Yixian was different from the elegant Bai Yixian they had met in the restaurant. Although she had a smile on her face at this time, there was no elegance, only lust. And she was targeting Murong Yu. The moment they saw her, everyone suddenly realized. And the eyes of Yu Mengqing and the others were all cast on Murong Yu's face. It seems that Bai Yixian is really a homosexual. It's over, my husband's chrysanthemum can't be protected. At this moment, Murong Yu's wives didn't have any anger in their minds, nor any countermeasures, but this somewhat absurd thought at the same time. But soon, they were stunned by their own thoughts. The next moment they all looked at Murong Yu with sympathetic eyes, and the scene of Murong Yu being raped appeared in their minds. Feeling the eyes of the women, Murong Yu's face darkened. Was he marrying unvirtuous wives? This group of little girls, after I get out of here, I must teach them a lesson. Murong Yu thought in his heart, but looked at Bai Yixian who was slowly walking over. Haha, it seems that everyone knows my purpose. I'm sure everyone is curious about the portrait hanging in the hall. What's going on? Now, I'm not afraid to tell you that the men in these portraits are the most outstanding people I have slept with. Every time I have slept with them, their portraits will appear here. And soon, Murong Yu's portrait will also be hung in my hall. Isn't it very shocking? As if knowing that Murong Yu and the others didn't have any power to resist, Bai Yixian said without any fear. Hearing this, the faces of the women changed slightly, and they felt a little disgusted. Because before this, they were still commenting on the portraits of handsome men. But now that they found out that these people had been slept with by Bai Yixian, they suddenly felt a chill. Can you let them go? Murong Yu stood up and looked at Bai Yixian with a somewhat sinister expression. As if he knew his fate, he didn't ask to be let go. Bai Yixian shook her head and smiled faintly. Although I have no interest in them, they know my secret. But they all know my secret. Do you think I can let them go? Chapter 13:16. Hearing this, all the women's faces changed, and then they leaned towards Murong Yu at the same time. In their hearts, Murong Yu was their support, regardless of whether Murong Yu had the strength or not. Gongsun Ningyu first looked at Murong Yu with a surprised look, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Just as the women approached, Murong Yu's face became gloomy, and he looked at Bai Yixian with murderous intent in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "Bai Yixian, leave a way out for everything, and we'll meet again in the future." Bai Yixian sneered and walked slowly towards Murong Yu while waving her folding fan. "If you serve me well, I naturally won't kill them. In other words, how long they can live depends on your performance. If you satisfy me, I can also consider not killing you. Otherwise, once I get tired of playing with you, it will be your death. Murong Yu's face showed anger, and the women also glared at Bai Yixian. But no one spoke. They all knew that no matter what they said, it was useless. Therefore, they didn't bother to waste their saliva with Bai Yixian. It was just that they were extremely anxious in their hearts. But because they couldn't use it, they didn't even have the ability to transmit their voices. Murong Yu exhaled. Although he was still angry at Manchester United, he seemed to have been discouraged. It seemed that he had already been appointed. So he slumped in the chair and looked at Bai Yixian. I'm curious. There should be a lot of men who have been played by you, right? Where are those people now? Why are there no rumors about your manly style outside? When asking this question, Yu Mengqing and others also looked at Bai Yixian. Over the years, I have played with tens of thousands of men. Bai Yixian was not in a hurry at all. She dragged a chair and sat in front of Murong Yu. She looked at Murong Yu calmly, as if admiring a work of art. The portraits hanging in the hall are the most outstanding people among those people, and they are also my favorite people. Murong Yu, you still don't know. I liked you from the first time I saw you. At that time, I was determined to get my hands on you. Murong Yu and the others couldn't help but shudder. Goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. Bai Yixian was truly disgusted. In the end, Murong Yu couldn't help but interrupt him. Otherwise, if he continued, they would all be disgusted to death. Answer my question. Murong Yu coldly shouted. Bai Yixian didn't get angry. She just looked at Murong Yu lustfully and continued, I killed all of them. Otherwise, the news would have already spread out in fragmentary Star City. As for the rumors that I like women, that's just a cover-up. A cold light flashed in Murong Yu's eyes. Bai Yixian's strength wasn't very strong. She was just a high-level undead realm expert. However, she had actually played with tens of thousands of men. Those people were not only toyed with by him, but they were also killed by him in the end. It wasn't hard to imagine that most of them were from the Fragmentary Star sect. Some of them were people who had entered Broken Star City. He must have used his identity to get them. Otherwise, with his strength, it was impossible. Well, I've told you too much. I can't wait. Bai Yixian stood up and slowly walked over to Murong Yu. At the same time, she stretched out a big hand to grab Murong Yu. Wait, if you dare to do it, I'll shout. By then, the whole Fragmentary Star City will know about you. Murong Yu shouted. Bai Yixian laughed. Don't be too naive. My mansion is covered by countless arrays. Even if you shout until your throat is broken, no one will know. Otherwise, why don't you think I'm living in the City Lord's mansion? Hearing this, Murong Yu's face suddenly showed a smile. The anger, shock, humiliation, panic, and other negative emotions from before all disappeared. He sat on a chair, crossed his legs, and looked at Bai Yixian with a smile. Bai Yixian, do you really think you have everything under control? A touch of vigilance flashed on Bai Yixian's face, but she soon smiled. You are very strong, but you only rely on external forces. The drunken 100,000 T and the white flame shadow incense can easily take down profound sages. How can you resist them? Thinking of that profound sage, I'm getting more and more excited. Murong Yu, let me have a good time. Bai Yixian laughed and quickly grabbed at Murong Yu. Murong Yu still had a smile on his face. Bai Yixian, did you forget something? Since you know that I am Murong Yu, you should know that I am. Bai Yixian's face suddenly changed. With a thought, his figure was about to explosively retreat. But it was already too late. A soul saint. Murong Yu finally managed to say those words. The liquid soul power, which had been rolling in his spiritual space like raging waves, tore through the void and whizzed towards Bai Yixian in an attempt to kill him. The effects of the drunken 100,000 T and the white flame shadow incense might be extremely terrifying, and even profound sages could easily be affected. However, they could only target strength and had no effect on the soul. It was precisely because of this that Gongsun Ningyu seemed to have something to say to Murongyu. Because she could use her soul force. It was also because of this that Murongyu was not really shocked or panicked. Because there was no need for that. Although Bai Yixian was strong, how could she escape from his soul attack? Moreover, Murongyu inadvertently revealed that their mansion was sealed by layers of formations. Even if they fought here, no one outside would know. Therefore, he finally made his move. A high-level undead realm powerhouse, even at their peak, would not be able to resist Murongyu's 2-star soul attack. What's more, Bai Yixian was not prepared and was very close to Murongyu. Almost as soon as Murongyu launched his soul attack, his soul force rushed into Bai Yixian's soul space. At this time, Bai Yixian was finally frightened. While quickly retreating, she saw Murongyu's soul force quickly dissipating in her soul space. It did not immediately annihilate her soul. Although Bai Yixian did not understand why Murongyu did not attack her soul, she breathed a sigh of relief and retreated like a meteor. But in the next moment, her complexion changed again. Murongyu's huge soul force formed a huge net in Bai Yixian's soul space at this time. While Bai Yixian was still in shock, the heavenly net made of spiritual strength had already enveloped Bai Yixian's soul. Then, the net quickly shrank and tied up Bai Yixian's soul like a rice dumpling. Ah! Bai Yixian immediately screamed out in pain. His figure that was retreating suddenly stopped. If you dare to move again, I will kill you immediately. Murongyu's cold voice sounded in Bai Yixian's ears. But it made Bai Yixian's body tremble, and she did not dare to move. What a joke! Her entire soul was now under Murongyu's control. As long as Murongyu's mind moved, her soul would explode. Once her soul shattered, she would die without a doubt. In the blink of an eye, the situation reversed. Give me the antidote. Murongyu sat on the chair and shouted coldly. Bai Yixian's body trembled fiercely. First, she looked at Murongyu in horror, then took out a bottle from her storage ring and threw it to Murongyu. You eat one first. Murongyu poured out a pill and sniffed it, but did not find anything strange. But she was still not at ease. She flicked her finger and sent the pill to Bai Yixian. This is really the antidote, Bai Yixian was about to explain, but a tearing pain came from her soul and almost made her faint. So, she did not dare to talk nonsense and directly swallowed the pill. After a long time, Murongyu saw that nothing had happened to Bai Yixian. Then, he swallowed the pill. Then, the power that was imprisoned in his body started to circulate and was under his control again. This drunken thousand tea and white flame shadow fragrance are really strange. They are high-quality tea leaves and high-quality drinks, but when combined together, they have such an effect. Murongyu thought in his heart. Previously, except for the power of his soul, all of his power had been imprisoned. Even the power of life was no exception. After carefully checking that there were no side effects, Murongyu gave the antidote to Yu Mengqing and the others to swallow. Although there was the power of life, it was best to avoid unnecessary trouble. At this time, Bai Yixian suddenly said, Murongyu, you have all been cured. I will not pursue this matter. You should leave quickly. Murongyu looked at Bai Yixian with an amused expression. Now that the initiative is in my hands, do you think we can leave so easily? Bai Yixian's face suddenly became gloomy. She seemed to remember that Murongyu was a daring person. So, her face became gloomy, and a touch of fear flashed in the depths of her eyes. What do you want? Young master of Broken Star City, core disciple of Broken Star Sect, you have a lot of good things on you, right? Give them all to me, and maybe I will let you go. Murongyu said indifferently. Bai Yixian immediately gnashed her teeth. Murongyu, don't go too far. Since you know my identity. Puff. Before Bai Yixian could finish his words, his entire body suddenly split into two halves. Then, a huge axe struck the ground of the hall with a boom, creating a huge pit in the ground. At this moment, Murongyu was shocked. How dare you drug me? You deserve to die. The little girl sneered and clapped her hands as if she was swatting a fly. She didn't care at all. You killed him? Murong Yu glared at the little girl. Do you want to keep him alive? Since he was going to die anyway, it was better to just kill him. I don't want to be disgusted. The little girl stared at Murong Yu, not to be outdone. Murong Yu held his forehead with both hands. The reason why he didn't kill Bai Yixian was not because he was afraid of the city master of Broken Star City and the Broken Star sect. It was because once Bai Yixian was killed, the city master of Broken Star City would come immediately. At that time, how could he have time to plunder Bai Yixian's treasures? But now that he had killed Bai Yixian, he would do his best to plunder Bai Yixian's treasures before the city master of Broken Star City arrived. So, Murong Yu waved his hand and put Yu Mengqing and the others into the Hichu Luoshu. Then, he reached out his hand and put Bai Yixian's storage ring into it. At the same time, his figure flashed and disappeared. Chapter 13-17. An incomparably huge spiritual sense spread out like a tide, and instantly submerged Bai Yixian's mansion. Then Murong Yu found that the mansion was indeed covered by layers of formations and restrictions. Most of the formations and restrictions were soundproof and so on. Apart from a few servants who weren't very strong, there weren't any other experts in the mansion. For these people, Murong Yu was too lazy to find trouble with them. After the enormous divine sense swept over them, it went to find Bai Yixian's treasure house. With Bai Yixian's identity, he must have a lot of treasures, and he wouldn't carry all of them with him. Therefore, Murong Yu was looking for treasures. Otherwise, he would have left long ago. Found it. Murong Yu's face flashed with a touch of joy, and then his figure flashed and he had already entered. Little Loli quickly followed after him. The little Loli didn't want to enter Hichu Luoshu. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't force her. Anyway, the little Loli was very strong. At the same time that Murong Yu found the treasure house, in the Broken Star City Lord's mansion, a huge and extremely terrifying aura soared into the sky, enveloping the entire Broken Star City in an instant. The aura contained incomparable anger and violence, wreaking havoc in every inch of the Broken Star City. The powerful and terrifying aura suppressed the souls of countless saints, causing them to tremble and their faces to change color. Yixian is dead? Who killed my son? Bai Lin, the city lord of Broken Star City, looked at the soul jade slip in his hand that had been shattered into pieces and roared hysterically. Originally, he was cultivating in seclusion, but suddenly he felt something strange in his storage ring, and then he found that Bai Yixian's soul jade slip had dissipated. Who was so bold as to kill his son in Broken Star City? Bai Lin roared in anger, and a terrifying aura erupted from his body like a tide, directly shaking the house he was in into pieces. Then his figure flashed, and he soared into the sky, shooting toward Bai Yixian's mansion. At this time, Murong Yu entered Bai Yixian's treasure house. So many saint artifacts! Looking at the countless saint artifacts strewn across the ground, some of them were radiating with the light of a high-grade saint artifact. Immediately, Murong Yu's eyes lit up. However, before he could finish looking through the items here, an incomparably powerful aura descended upon the mansion. Murong Yu's spiritual force even saw a middle-aged man with towering rage and murderous intent striding through the air towards them. They came so quickly. Murong Yu's complexion changed slightly. Then, he waved his hand, and put all the things in Bai Yixian's treasury into his Hichu Luoshu. Rumble! At this moment, an earth-shattering sound was heard, shaking the heavens and the earth. The huge sound wave almost caused Murong Yu to fall to the ground. Then, he saw that the formations and restrictions of Bai Yi Immortal's residence had been destroyed. Then, a huge fist as big as a mountain came down from the sky and smashed down fiercely. This should be the city lord of Broken Star City, Bai Lin, right? Murong Yu thought in his heart, but his figure had already rushed out of the treasure house. Little bastard, die for me! After the formation was destroyed by the punch, Bai Lin's massive spiritual force had already shrouded over. When he saw Bai Yixian's corpse, he also found Murongyu. Although he saw that Murongyu was only a great saint, he didn't care so much. Everyone in the mansion must die. Therefore, he roared violently, and he condensed his ultimate strength into a fist. Whoosh, Hichu Luoshu and Yinyang Cauldron immediately turned into a stream of light and shot out of Murongyu's body. Then, they suspended above his head, and holy light fell down to protect him. At the same time, the angel wings appeared. Murongyu grabbed the little loli who was about to fight back and soared into the sky. Rumble, the terrifying power was like a huge holy mountain pressing down. It directly crashed on top of the Yinyang Cauldron and Hichu Luoshu. With Bai Lin's undead stage strength, he couldn't cause any damage to these two treasures. But the attack of the treasures shook Murongyu's mind. Suddenly bearing the attack of an undead stage expert, Murongyu's mind seemed to be shattered and almost torn apart. At the same time, the overflowing damage surged into Murongyu's body like a torrent, causing his blood and qi to churn and churn like a raging sea. At the same time, cracks began to appear all over his body. Blood splattered and scattered all over the ground. Even Murongyu's body, which was originally soaring into the sky, directly exploded from the void. With a boom, he was blasted deep into the ground. When Murongyu and the little loli were blasted deep into the ground, Bai Yixian's entire mansion exploded under Bai Lin's attack and was razed to the ground. The servants in the mansion were also beaten to death. His son was killed, and the furious Bai Lin even had the impulse to slaughter the entire Broken Star City. But he didn't dare to do so, unless he wanted to die. But if he couldn't slaughter the city, destroying everyone in Bai Yixian's mansion was simply a piece of cake for him. Bah! The moment she landed, the little loli's body exploded with a ball of holy light. It cancelled out all the attack power and the shock force. But the little loli was still very angry. Her figure flashed, and she turned into a stream of light and shot out from the depths of the ground. In midair, she chopped down with her axe towards Bai Lin. Die for me. Seeing the little loli rush over as if nothing had happened, Bai Lin was first startled, but then he became even angrier and roared with killing intent. He violently punched out again. Suddenly, a huge fist condensed from power broke through the void and rushed in front of the little loli in an instant. The little loli wasn't surprised, but was happy, and the huge axe in her hand actually met it. With a piu sound, the huge fist was directly chopped in half. The little loli's face was filled with pride. In front of the incomparably sharp axe, nothing could withstand a single blow. Moreover, the axe could ignore power. But the little loli's pride didn't last long. The power that was chopped in half didn't stop, and continued to roar, quickly strangling her. In the blink of an eye, the two powers had already fiercely bombarded the little loli's body. Aya, the little loli's body fiercely emitted a dazzling holy light, and an extremely violent and powerful power burst out from her body, firmly protecting her. But her whole body was still sent flying by Bai Lin's attack. Bai Lin was shocked. Although the little loli had been blasted away, she had been sent flying. Although the little loli was sent flying, he found that the little loli wasn't injured at all. His full-powered punch was actually completely neutralized. The little loli was basically in an invincible position. But the power in the little loli's body clearly didn't belong to her. It was placed in her body by a powerful person. Just like the Tianmeng power in Murongyu's body, there was a limit to the number of times it could be used. Once the power was exhausted, the little loli's trump card would be gone, and she would be like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Bai Lin obviously knew this, and only saw a sinister smile on his face, as he crazily bombarded her with punch after punch. In the blink of an eye, he exploded with tens of thousands of punches, all landing on the little loli's body. The little loli constantly screamed, and didn't have the strength to fight back, as she was continuously sent flying. But the holy light on her body was still so dazzling, as if it wasn't exhausted at all. Regarding this, Murong Yu and Bai Lin couldn't help but be shocked. Murong Yu was fine, as he already knew that the little lowly's background wasn't simple. But Bai Lin was shocked. But shock was shock. The hatred of killing his son was greater than the heavens, no matter what her background was, just kill her. Thus, after seeing that his continuous attacks were unable to break the little lowly's power, Bai Lin stopped attacking. Who knew when he would be able to break this shield? And after this shield, did the little lowly have any other trump cards? Thus, with a sinister smile, he stepped into the air and caught up with the little lowly, then reached out his hand, grabbing the little lowly in the air. The monstrous hand fell from the sky, and streaks of power splashed out from Bai Lin's 5 fingers, intertwining into a giant net in the air, covering the land and binding the little lowly. The little lowly's power shield was strong, but if she was caught, no matter what trump card she had, it would be exhausted. Want to catch me? The little lowly was furious. The giant axe in his hand continuously slashed out. In an instant, this space was filled with an incomparably huge axe shadow, and the power that was attacked was directly broken by the axe. But Bai Lin was still an undead stage warrior, even if the giant axe's power was shocking. But she couldn't escape. The giant net quickly contracted, and was about to bind the little lowly. The little lowly became more and more furious, and began to madly attack. But Bai Lin, an undead stage warrior, was much stronger than her. Streaks of power surged out like stormy waves, and the little lowly couldn't resist. Seeing that the little lowly was about to be caught by Bai Lin, a sinister smile appeared on Bai Lin's face. But at this moment, an extremely strong and dangerous aura shrouded his heart. In an instant, all the hair on Bai Lin's body stood on end. An expert is attacking me. Bai Lin was shocked, and the power in his body surged crazily, forming a shield on the surface of his body. At the same time, his incomparably huge divine consciousness spread out. But he didn't find an expert attacking him. Rumble, but at this moment, a terrifying power that made his soul tremble, rushed into his spiritual space. Soul attack. At this moment, Bai Lin finally reacted. With a scream, his extreme power rushed into the spiritual space to protect his soul. Rumble, Murong Yu's soul power exploded in Bai Lin's mind, entangling with Bai Lin's power. The overflowing power attacked Bai Lin's soul, and it was like a lonely boat in a stormy sea, about to be torn apart at any time. Whoosh! While Bai Lin was doing his best to defend against the soul attack, a black shadow descended from the sky with a terrifying aura that could destroy the world. It slammed down viciously, wanting to kill Bai Lin with brute force. A dual attack of soul and power. Bai Lin, who was shocked, finally withdrew the power that was grabbing the little lowly, and used all his strength to defend. Chapter 13:18. Murong Yu's soul power was like a dragon, unleashing the most violent attacks in Bai Lin's soul space. It forced most of Bai Lin's power into his soul space. While destroying Murong Yu's soul power, he also protected his own soul. But the flame of primal chaos from Murong Yu's yin-yang cauldron also made Bai Lin feel a strong sense of danger. He knew that if the yin-yang cauldron killed him, he would be severely injured if not killed. Whoosh! While Bai Lin was defending himself, Murong Yu had already turned into a streak of light, passing through time and space and appearing next to the little girl. Then he grabbed the angry little girl, flapped his wings, and soared into the sky. During this process, Murong Yu's soul pond was still rioting. Streaks of terrifying power pierced through the void, madly attacking Bai Lin. But when Murong Yu left, the yin-yang cauldron slammed into the void and flew back into Murong Yu's body. Murong Yu didn't plan to use the yin-yang cauldron to kill Bai Lin. That was impossible. Plus, even if they were lucky enough to kill Bai Lin, it would only draw out more powerful cultivators from the Broken Star sect. Now that Murong Yu didn't have his broken finger, if he was trapped, he would die without a doubt. As expected, when Murong-yu left, several figures soared into the sky from the broken star city. Streaks of powerful aura burst out from their bodies, quickly dissipating into the distance like a tide, suppressing everything. They were all imperishable realm cultivators. All of this happened too quickly. Only now did they react. Then, they stepped into the air and quickly appeared near Bai Lin. Kill them! Now Bai Lin saw that he had crushed Murong-yu's soul power. Even so, his soul was slightly affected. He was slightly injured. But it wasn't a big deal. When he said those words, Bai Lin had already soared into the sky. The imperishable realm cultivators of the broken star city were a bit confused, but they still chased after him. However, there was no trace of Murong-yu in the sky. With their speed, they had already rushed out of the range of their divine sense. However, Bai Lin's face was filled with rage as he chased after him. It was as if he knew where Murong-yu had gone. Far away from scattered Star City, Murong-yu finally stopped and let go of the little loli's hand. I'm so angry. Big baddie, why don't you kill him for me? Previously, when she was bombarded by Bai Lin to the point where she could not fight back, the little loli was completely enraged. She could not help but want to go back and kill Bai Lin. Murong-yu's face was filled with black lines. The little loli was obviously no match for the other party. Wouldn't she be courting death if she went back? Immediately, he said with a dark expression, "If you want to go back, go ahead. I'm not interested in going back." As he spoke, Murong-yu flew forward. At the same time, he sent a strand of his divine sense into Hichu Luoshu to sort out Bai Yixian's treasures. 5 high-grade sacred artifacts. This was Murong-yu's biggest gain. In addition to these 5 sacred artifacts, there were some mid-grade and low-grade sacred artifacts, as well as some other heaven and earth treasures and pills. However, those things were useless to Murong-yu. He was only interested in the 5 high-grade sacred artifacts. As long as he refined them, Murong-yu's strength could at least increase by a small realm. He could reach the 5th level of the Great Saint or even the 6th level of the Great Saint. Now, he could not wait to find a place to refine these sacred artifacts to increase his cultivation. Big baddie! Seeing Murong-yu leave without looking back, the little loli thought for a moment and finally followed. Huh! Suddenly, Murong-yu turned his head and looked behind. 4 extremely powerful and terrifying auras surged over from the distant horizon like tidewater. In the blink of an eye, 4 figures with terrifying auras appeared in Murong-yu's line of sight. When she saw the 4 people, the little loli excitedly grasped her giant axe and could not help but rush forward to fight them. It's Bai Lin and the others? Murong-yu frowned slightly, a trace of surprise flashing across his face. It should be known that after leaving Fragmentary Star City, he did not walk in a straight line to the end. Along the way, he changed directions a few times. If it was an ordinary person, it would be difficult to track him. However, Bai Lin seemed to know his exact location and directly chased after him. Moreover, other than Bai Lin, the other 3 were all undead stage powerhouses. The power radiating from each of them was much stronger than Bai Lin's. Let's go! After recovering from his shock, Murong-yu grabbed the little loli again and disappeared in a flash. Half a day later, they changed directions dozens of times. Now, even they did not know where they were. They won't chase after us like this, right? Murong-yu muttered in his heart, a trace of coldness flashing across his eyes. However, what shocked him was that not long after, Bai Lin and the others appeared in Murong-yu's line of sight again. What tricks do they have? They can actually track us? Can they also see the auras left in the void? Murong-yu was extremely depressed. He finally understood how those people felt when they were tracked by him before. This kind of follower that could not be shaken off made him extremely unhappy. Now, he could not beat them in a fight, nor could he escape. Murong-yu could directly use the Hichu Luoshu to teleport, but he could only teleport back to where he had been before. Then, wouldn't these days of travel be a waste? Even if he teleported back, Who knew if they would wait for him in the same place? Or would they track him no matter where he was? That would be equivalent to Lu Haotsong being chased by the Blood Rain ancestor. In the end, Lu Haotsong was forced to escape into the chaotic secret plane, where he lived for countless years. Even now, he was still recovering from his injuries in the Hichu Luoshu. Murong Yu did not want to end up like Lu Haotsong. They definitely have our auras, and are using the connection between our auras and our true bodies to track us. No matter where we go, we won't be able to escape. Just as they were about to leave, the little loli suddenly said, "There's such a god art?" Murong Yu could not help but be a little surprised. The little loli nodded. This god art is usually only used by people with extremely high cultivation levels. They're only in the imperishable realm, so it's impossible for them to cultivate this god art. They must have a saint artifact with this function. Unless we destroy their saint artifact, no matter how big the holy world is, they can still catch up, the little loli added. Murong Yu's face darkened. If he could destroy their saint artifact, then he could destroy Bai Lin and the others. Why would he need to run like a stray dog like they were now? 4 imperishable realm cultivators. If I increase my cultivation level by 1 or 2 more levels, I might be able to kill Bai Lin. But there are still 3 imperishable realm cultivators. Murong Yu frowned. In his previous battle with Bai Lin, he roughly knew Bai Lin's strength. As long as he could take Bai Lin's attacks head-on, he could use his soul power to kill Bai Lin. But the other 3 were a little difficult to deal with. However, the little loli's eyes exploded with a dazzling light. You really have the power to kill Bai Lin? If you can, I have a saint artifact that can trap the other 3 for a short time. As long as we kill Bai Lin and take his saint artifact, they won't be able to catch up to us. Really? Murong Yu looked at the little loli. The little loli fiercely nodded her head. Being chased all the way made her, an unparalleled beauty with unparalleled beauty, feel extremely sullen. Plus, she had wanted to kill Bai Lin for a long time. In that case, let's enter my spatial treasure first. Murong Yu thought for a moment, then grabbed the little loli and entered Hichu Luoshu. Then, with a thought, he too and Luoshu disappeared on the spot. When they reappeared, they were already back in Scattered Star City. Hichu Luoshu couldn't stay where they were. Bai Lin and the others would imprison them, or even take them down. Couldn't they track them down? Then let them go back and forth. They disappeared. After Murong Yu and the little loli left, Bai Lin's group of 4 finally arrived. If Murong Yu was here, he would be surprised to see 2 illusory shadows in front of the 4 of them. They were exactly the same as Murong Yu and the little loli. Clearly, they were formed from the auras of Murong Yu and the little loli that Bai Lin had captured. That's the direction of Scattered Star City. After arriving, the 2 illusory shadows pointed in the direction of Scattered Star City. Even if they flee to the ends of the earth, they'll still die. An imperishable realm expert said in a low voice. Anyone who kills a disciple of the Scattered Stars sect will be hunted down endlessly. Bai Lin nodded, his eyes shooting out 2 rays of incomparably bitter resentment. Then, his figure flickered, and he shot towards the Scattered Star City. Within Hichu Luoshu, the little loli pestered Murong Yu, her face full of shock. What a miraculous spatial treasure! Big baddie, hurry up and tell me, how did you do it? But before Murong Yu could speak, the little loli began talking to herself. In the entire world, there's only one treasure that can teleport, the Hichu Luoshu. But Hichu Luoshu's owner has always been a chaotic celestial body. Are you a chaotic celestial body? Murong Yu's face flickered, but he quickly suppressed it. However, the little loli had been staring at Murong Yu's face all this while. Naturally, Murong Yu's reaction couldn't escape her eyes. Then the little loli laughed. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone that you're a chaotic celestial body. Don't forget, you're my husband. Murong Yu's face was a bit unnatural. What chaotic celestial body? I've never heard of it. Don't play dumb with me. You know very well whether or not you're a chaotic celestial body. You'd better hurry up and cultivate. Maybe they'll be here soon. The little lowly glared fiercely at Murongyu, then looked outside at scattered Star City. It was precisely because Murongyu had opened a corner of the He-Tu and Luo Shu that the little lowly knew that they were in Shattered Star City and that they were in He-Tu and Luo Shu. I miscalculated, Murongyu muttered. He hadn't expected the little lowly to know about the He-Tu, Luo Shu and the chaotic celestial body. But now she knew. When the boat reached the bridge, it would cross that bridge. He gave the little lowly a deep look, then took out the 5 sacred-grade sacred artifacts and began cultivating. Chapter 13-19. Even the trashiest high-grade saint artifact could unleash power equivalent to an imperishable stage expert. Some of the best high-grade saint artifacts could even rival a peak imperishable stage expert. One could only imagine how terrifying a high-grade saint artifact's power was. Not long after Murongyu started smelting the sacred artifact, a thunderous sound came from his body, which had already reached the 4th order Great Sage realm. Following that, an aura that was more than 10 times stronger than before erupted from his body, causing ripples to appear in the surrounding space, and even shatter it. He broke through? Seeing this, little lowly looked at Murongyu in shock. It had been less than a day since Murongyu started cultivating. Even those peerless geniuses don't cultivate so fast, right? How can he refine high-grade saint artifacts with his strength? Right, he has a chaotic celestial body. It's said that every chaotic celestial body is capable of smelting anything. Seeing that Murongyu was still cultivating, the little lowly's face was filled with curiosity. She couldn't help but want to ask Murongyu how he could refine high-grade saint artifacts and use their power to increase his own cultivation. However, she didn't interrupt Murongyu's cultivation. 5th level Great Sage. My strength has increased by at least a little. With my current strength, I can easily kill 6th level or even 7th level Undying Stage experts, right? A smile appeared on Murongyu's face as he sensed his growing strength. But the amount of power needed to break through is too much. To break through to 5th level Great Sage from the peak of 4th level, I actually exhausted an entire high-grade saint artifact's power. Murongyu felt somewhat helpless. At this rate, it would be difficult for him to increase his strength in the future. Where was he going to find an item that contained a large amount of power for him to refine? What a fast speed! He just broke through to 5th level Great Sage half a day ago, and now he's already at the peak of 5th level Great Sage. It seems he'll break through to 6th level Great Sage soon. Seeing Murongyu's cultivation rising, little lowly was even more shocked and curious about Murongyu. Not good. At this moment, the little lowly's divine sense that was extended to Fragmentary Star City suddenly discovered Bai Lin's group of 4 shooting over from afar like meteors. It took them more than a day to rush back, and they were heading straight to where they were. Big baddie, they're coming. The little lowly resisted the urge to rush out and fight with Bai Lin and the others. She quickly reminded Murongyu. They are in Fragmentary Star City. Bai Lin and the others rushed into Fragmentary Star City like shooting stars. But soon, Bai Lin couldn't hold back his anger. This was because he had discovered that Murongyu and Bai Yixian's aura were above Bai Yixian's original residence. Provocation, this was definitely a naked provocation. Even this was an insult to Bai Lin. Son of a bitch, I'll kill them right now. Bai Lin was furious. As soon as he rushed into Fragmentary Star City, he couldn't help but throw a punch. The terrifying power directly broke through the void, like a divine dragon blasting towards Murongyu and the others. Rumble, Bai Yixian's residence, which had been razed to the ground by Bai Lin, was once again ravaged by the terrifying power. The violent power blasted a huge crater in the ground. Looking from afar, it was a shocking sight. But what made Bai Lin furious was that Murongyu and Bai Yixian's aura disappeared again. The two figures of Morong Yu and the little loli turned around at the same time to look behind them. After the little loli's reminder, Morong Yu, who was cultivating, immediately teleported away from Fragmentary Star City. Just as they were about to leave, Bai Lin's attack came down. If he was a moment slower, Hichu Luoshu would be hit. With Morong Yu's current strength, it would be hard for him to block the attack of an undead stage expert. If that were to happen, Morong Yu would be injured and his breakthrough to the next realm would be interrupted. If he wanted to continue, it would take a long time. Boom, boom, boom. Bai Lin was so furious that he felt like he was about to explode. Punch after punch blasted out, causing the ground to be in a mess. How can that little bastard be so fast? How can he suddenly disappear and return to Fragmentary Star City? It's like he teleported? An undead stage expert from the Fragmentary Star sect frowned in disbelief. Teleport? Are you kidding me? Bai Lin sneered, but then frowned deeply. The undead stage expert was telling the truth. But how had they teleported? Fragmentary Star City had never had a teleportation array. Can his saint weapon travel through the void? That's the only way he could be so much faster than us. Another undead stage expert said excitedly. Travel through the void? Bai Lin and the others were stunned. Saint weapons were extremely rare, but they weren't non-existent. It was said that the ability of this kind of sacred weapon was extremely terrifying. It could easily travel through the void. And the stronger the weapon, the further it could travel through the void. There were even legends of saint weapons that could travel through the entire holy world. Thinking of this, the three undead stage experts were all excited. Even Bai Lin, who had lost his son, couldn't help but show greed in his eyes. Saint weapons didn't need to travel long distances. Even tens of millions of miles or hundreds of millions of miles would be heaven-defying for them. If they had a saint weapon like that, even ancient saints wouldn't be able to do anything to them. And clearly, Morong Yu's saint weapon didn't stop there. It easily traveled a distance that would have taken them more than a day at full speed. But if he really has a saint weapon like that, why didn't he just run away? Why did he stay here? Why did he leave after we arrived? The third undead stage expert asked in confusion. That little bastard is only a great saint. He doesn't have enough power to use that saint weapon. Using it once would have used up all of his power. He probably stopped here to recover his strength. If we had arrived earlier, that little bastard wouldn't have been able to escape. Bai Lin's murderous intent surged, and his eyes shone with greed as he spoke. Everyone nodded, thinking that this should be the case. Then, they looked at each other, rose into the air again, and chased after Morong Yu. As for why they didn't report Morong Yu's saint weapon to the sect, they hadn't even considered this question. Only an idiot would report this. Wait for the sect's experts to take the saint weapon away? After Bai Lin and the others flew out of Shattered Star City, Morong Yu and the little girl appeared in the area before they teleported back to Shattered Star City. Morong Yu's habit was to habitually place a teleportation point no matter where he went. Peak 5th level Great Saint. He's about to break through, right? Seeing Morong Yu sitting cross-legged and cultivating, the little girl couldn't help but guess. Sure enough, before she finished speaking, Morong Yu's body shook violently. Then, an aura 10 times stronger than before erupted. 6th level Great Saint. He'd advanced by 2 levels in 2 days. He was a monstrous existence. Is this the cultivation speed of a chaotic celestial body? Isn't it a little too fast? The little loli was somewhat dumbfounded as she looked at Morong Yu, who had just made a breakthrough. She had the urge to strangle him to death. Her aptitude was also monstrous, but compared to Morong Yu, she was nothing. While the little girl was shocked, Morong Yu laughed bitterly in his heart. Breaking through from peak 4th level Great Saint to 5th level requires a high-grade saint weapon. To reach peak 5th level from 5th level requires the power of 2 high-grade saint weapons. If it weren't for the large number of Chaos Saint veins in Hichu Luoshu, 2 high-grade Saint weapons wouldn't have been enough to break through to 6th level Great Saint. Even so, more than 70% of the Chaos Saint veins have been consumed. 6th level Great Saint. He hadn't even reached the peak yet. Murong-yu had a feeling that refining a high-grade Saint weapon would only allow him to break through to 9th level Great Saint at most. If he wanted to break through to the undead realm, he would probably need a top-grade Saint weapon. After entering the undead realm, high-grade Saint weapons might not be of any use to him. If the undead realm required a top-grade Saint weapon, then the undead realm required a top-grade Saint weapon. If he stepped into the profound Sage realm, wouldn't he have to refine a Saint-grade Saint weapon? Thinking of this, Murong-yu's body couldn't help but shiver. Although there weren't many Saint-grade Saint weapons in the Holy World, the Holy Land was so big and there were so many cultivators. There should be a lot of Saint-grade Saint weapons. But what if he reached the ancient Sage realm? Wouldn't he have to refine an ancestral weapon to break through? An ancestral artifact. Murong-yu sighed as he shook his head to clear his mind of those thoughts. After all, these were matters for the future. As the saying goes, when the boat comes to the bridge, things will go straight. There was no need to worry about so many advantages now. You've refined those 5 high-grade Saint artifacts? Seeing Murong-yu stop cultivating, the little girl couldn't help but walk over and ask. Murong-yu nodded. There was no need to keep it a secret. However, the little girl jumped up in fright. Then, she stared at Murong-yu and said in a sharp voice, "You prodigal! Those were 5 high-grade Saint weapons, not 5 low-grade Saint weapons. You actually broke through 2 small realms? You're really too prodigal." Speaking of this, the little girl patted her slightly raised chest and seemed to be relieved. "Fortunately, you're not a woman. Otherwise, who would dare to marry you? No one can afford to raise you." "But..." The little girl frowned again. "You're so prodigal. If you don't have any ability, then won't you have to starve? You big bad guy. If you weren't my husband, I definitely wouldn't be with you." Murong-yu's face darkened. He hadn't even said a single word, yet this little loli had already blabbered on and on. How could he endure this? Moreover, what husband? Was it just the little girl's opinion? He didn't seem to agree. "Okay, let's not talk about these meaningless things. Our guests are here. We should go out and welcome them." Murong-yu glared at the little girl. Then, with a thought, the two left Hichu Luoshu and appeared in the Holy World. Chapter 1320. Why aren't they running anymore? Bai Lin and the others rushed over. When they saw Murong-yu and little Loli standing there and watching them quietly, they couldn't help but look at each other. The same question appeared in their minds. Perhaps they're not strong enough to continue running. Have you given up? An undead realm expert said with a smile. To them, Murong-yu and little Loli were in the Great Saint realm and the undead realm respectively. They were just ants that could be easily trampled to death. Bai Lin's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Murong-yu in the distance. The depths of his eyes were full of covetousness. Attack at the same time. Kill them directly to prevent any accident. Bai Lin's voice sounded in the other three's ears. The 3 of them nodded in unison. In a flash, they had already arrived in front of Murong-yu and his companion. Rumble at the same time they attacked. 4 large hands tore through the void. Like 4 huge dragons, they roared and grabbed at Murong-yu and Jian Wushuang, ready to devour them. 4 undead realm experts attacked at the same time. The power shook the sky. If it were an ordinary Great Saint realm or undead realm expert, they would have turned around and fled. They might have even gone limp from fear. However, Murong-yu and little Loli weren't ordinary people. In the face of their attacks, their faces even revealed confident expressions. Bai Lin and the others were naturally surprised. However, there was no hesitation in their attack. "Let's do it," Murong-yu said faintly. Little Loli nodded slightly and waved her hand. Suddenly, a golden light shot out. The golden light was as fast as flowing light. It tore through the void and rushed to the top of Bai Lin and the others' heads in an instant. At the same time, the golden light expanded with the wind. In an instant it grew into a bell-shaped sacred weapon with a radius of several meters. This is the Great Sky Soaring Bell. Although its grade isn't high, its binding power is very strong. Little Loli's voice sounded in Murong Yu's ears. As the little Loli spoke, the soaring sky spiritual bell fiercely shook in the void. Suddenly, the sky was filled with golden light. It was as dazzling as the sun in the sky. A terrifying aura burst out at the same time, shaking the void around the great spiritual bell and causing it to collapse. Streaks of golden energy instantly enveloped the void within a radius of 1,000 miles, directly enveloping Bai Lin and the other three. At the same time, the great spirit bell once again transformed into a golden light and swiftly smashed down. Instantly, a terrifying suction force seeped out from the bell, enveloping Bai Lin's group and pulling them towards the bell. Immediately, the power of Bai Lin's group was sucked in by the suction force of the bell. What a terrifying suction force! This great sky-soaring spiritual bell is at least a peerless saint artifact, right? Looking at the dazzling light of the great spiritual bell, Murong Yu suppressed the urge to smelt it with great difficulty. Bai Lin and the others were caught off guard. Their bodies were sucked in by the suction force. Immediately, they were all shocked and came to their senses. Then, a terrifying power burst out from their bodies. Like a violent wave, the power blasted towards the soaring sky spiritual bell. But at this moment, the soaring sky spiritual bell fiercely shook again. An extremely powerful power burst out, tearing through the void like a flood. It ruthlessly slammed into Bai Lin, who couldn't react in time. Immediately, Bai Lin was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. With one less person, the power to resist the soaring sky spiritual bell increased by a fraction. On the contrary, the soaring sky spiritual bell's power increased by a fraction. Under the little Loli's control, the soaring sky spiritual bell exploded with supreme power. It actually slowly sucked in the other three undead stage experts. However, the little Loli didn't have it easy either. With her current strength, controlling such a high-grade saint artifact was a bit strained. Moreover, she had to suppress three undead stage experts at the same time. Haha, at the same time that Bai Lin was sent flying, Murong Yu had already rushed forward with a loud laugh. Halfway there, his soul power tore through the void like a stormy sea. It transformed into an incomparably huge net in the void. It ruthlessly enveloped Bai Lin. At the same time, the yin-yang cauldron revealed a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It burned with a primal flame that could incinerate everything as it ruthlessly attacked Bai Lin. At the same time, the dragonbone flame needle shot out. It exploded with balls of soul attack and strangled Bai Lin. With his current soul power, it wasn't a problem for him to control several saint artifacts at the same time. Seeing Murong Yu coming for him, Bai Lin's killing intent skyrocketed. His murderous aura soared as he wanted to kill Murong Yu. But at this moment, Murong Yu's spiritual power was the first to attack. After witnessing the strength of Murong Yu's soul power, Bai Lin instantly divided a large portion of his power into the soul space to protect his soul. However, Murong Yu's soul power was endless. It was like a stormy sea that attacked him, wanting to kill him. And the yin-yang cauldron also gave Bai Lin an extremely strong sense of danger. Facing Murong Yu's unprecedentedly powerful attack, Bai Lin retreated rapidly. During this process, a battle sword shot out from his body. It cut through the void and actually slashed directly at the yin-yang cauldron that was ruthlessly attacking him. Kill! Murong Yu roared as the He-Tu and the inscription of the Luo floated above his head. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Bai Lin and unleashed 1,000 armies elephant-pulling fist. You're courting death. Seeing Murong Yu, a mere great saint, attacking him at close range, Bai Lin's lungs were about to explode. Murong Yu was looking down on him. So he roared and punched out at the same time. Boom! The attacks from both sides collided violently in the void and exploded with an earth-shattering sound. After the collision, Bai Lin, who was in the Eternal Realm, only shook violently a few times. On the other hand, Murong Yu's entire body was sent flying. Bai Lin's murderous aura surged. He took a step forward and was about to chase after Murong Yu. However, at that moment, a loud, muffled sound was heard from the sky. Suddenly, Bai Lin's mind felt like it had been punched by someone. It was almost torn apart. Bai Lin was shocked and raised his head to look. He saw that his battle sword had been shattered into billions of pieces. And the yin-yang cauldron only paused for a moment. Then it broke through the void and continued to attack. You destroyed my upper-grade sacred weapon. Bai Lin roared, his murderous aura growing stronger. That sacred weapon was the best of the upper-grade sacred weapons. It was comparable to an ordinary top-grade sacred weapon. And it had been nurtured by him for many years. The power it released was even more terrifying than an ordinary top-grade sacred weapon. But now, it had been destroyed by the yin-yang cauldron. This was the difference between sacred weapons. No matter how much power a low-grade sacred weapon could release, it was far inferior to a high-grade one. It would be shattered upon collision. Just like a great saint and a supreme. No matter how heaven-defying or powerful the great saint was. But a supreme could easily kill him. Bai Lin's mind was instantly damaged. After that, his power couldn't help but stagnate for a moment. But in that moment, Murong Yu's soul power found an opportunity. It tore a bloody path through Bai Lin's vast ocean-like power and headed straight for his soul. Bang! Although Bai Lin reacted quickly and hurriedly mobilized his power to attack the soul power. However, the soul power still smashed into his soul. After a loud bang, a part of Bai Lin's soul was annihilated. More than 10% of it was destroyed. Although it wasn't a serious injury, it wasn't a light one either. At the same time, the yin-yang cauldron came down with terrifying power. The yin-yang cauldron could easily destroy Bai Lin's upper-grade sacred weapon. His body wasn't as strong as the sacred weapon, and now most of his power was gathered in his soul space. He didn't have much power to protect himself. If it was just an ordinary sacred weapon, he could withstand it. But the flame of primal chaos made him tremble in fear. Once it came down, even his power would be burned, let alone an ordinary sacred body. Thus, he quickly retreated. Bai Lin, you will die today. Murong Yu laughed and rushed forward. But what shocked him was that even though most of Bai Lin's power was in his soul space, the terrifying aura that erupted was still terrifying enough to destroy heaven and earth. If he hadn't reached the 6th level of the Great Saint Realm and had the power to kill a high-level undead realm expert, he probably wouldn't have been able to get close. But now, he had the Hichu Luoshu to reduce part of the power, so it was quite easy for him. Soul power, the yin-yang cauldron, the dragonbone flame needle, and his own power. The four-pronged attack was so violent that it forced Bai Lin, an undead realm expert, to retreat. In fact, it was because Bai Lin was only at the 1st level of the undead realm. If it were a high-level undead realm expert, Murong Yu wouldn't have been able to get close. And Murong Yu's soul power couldn't break through the defense of a high-level undead realm expert. Seeing Bai Lin being forced back by a great saint, the other 3 undead realm saints of the Broken Star sect dropped their jaws. It was too unbelievable. But it wouldn't be easy for Murong Yu to kill Bai Lin either. Big bad guy, hurry up and kill Bai Lin. I can't hold on much longer. At that moment, the little girl's voice rang in Murong Yu's ears. Murong Yu was shocked. When he turned around, he saw that the little Loli's face was somewhat pale, and her forehead was covered in cold sweat. God's descent. Murong Yu gritted his teeth and used a move he hadn't used in a long time. If it weren't for the fact that his soul didn't have any offensive moves and could only attack with brute force, he would have killed Bai Lin long ago. Chapter 13:21. A gigantic, blurry shadow of a giant appeared above Morong Yu's head. A powerful, mysterious, and irresistible power shot out from the giant's shadow, sweeping in all directions. It instantly enveloped Bai Lin, Little Loli, and the others. At this moment, other than Morong Yu, Bai Lin, Little Loli, and the others were stunned. They were momentarily distracted. They lost their minds. The mind was different from soul power and cultivation. It was something that couldn't be seen or touched. However, once the mind was completely destroyed, that person would die. It could be said that the mind and soul were equally important. To a certain extent, the mind could even control the soul and power. When Bai Lin lost control of his mind, his soul and power instantly stopped moving. Although deity's descent only affected Bai Lin for 1/100th of an instant. However, this was enough time for Morong Yu to kill him. If Morong Yu was stronger, he could kill Bai Lin thousands of times in this time. While Bai Lin's power came to a standstill, Morong Yu's spiritual strength tore a huge crack in Bai Lin's power. Then, the spiritual strength continued forward and ruthlessly twisted Bai Lin's soul. Bai Lin's soul trembled violently. His entire body was trembling from the intense pain. The intense tearing pain instantly woke him up from his absent-minded state. However, it was too late. Morong Yu's soul power was like a huge net that bound his soul. His soul power even formed billions of huge sabers that slashed at his soul in a frenzy. Every time he slashed, Bai Lin roared in pain. With every slash, a part of Bai Lin's soul was destroyed. In 1/100th of an instant, Bai Lin's soul wasn't completely destroyed. However, 60% of it was destroyed. 60% of his soul was destroyed. It was a serious injury. It would take countless eras for him to recover. However, how could Morong Yu give him time to recover? The soul pool began to move violently. Streaks of soul power materialized and shot out to kill the soul pool. At the same time, the yin-yang cauldron also came crashing down. With his soul severely damaged, Bai Lin's strength rapidly declined and soon fell to the high-level undead realm. At this time, he was no match for Morong Yu. After he tried his best to avoid the yin-yang cauldron's attack, Morong Yu teleported in front of him. 1,000 Army Elephant Drawing Fist. It was a simple punch, but it contained all of Morong Yu's power. All of it landed on Bai Lin's body. With Morong Yu's strength, he could already kill high-level undead expert. Therefore, after a loud explosion, more than half of Bai Lin's body was blown up by his punch. His physical body was destroyed, and his cultivation level, which had fallen to the high-level undead realm, fell again to the 7th level of the undead realm. This realm posed no threat to Morong Yu. With his strength greatly reduced, Bai Lin was finally unable to resist Morong Yu's soul power. With a thought from Morong Yu, the heavenly net formed by his spiritual power abruptly contracted. Bai Lin immediately let out an incomparably mournful scream. The remaining soul was directly swept out of the soul space by Morong Yu's soul power. Kill! Once the soul left the soul space, it was even more vulnerable without the protection of power. With a thought, Morong Yu easily destroyed Bai Lin's consciousness. The moment his soul and consciousness were erased, the remaining half of Bai Lin's body was no longer of any use and fell directly to the ground. Bai Lin was killed. A dignified undead realm expert was killed by Morong Yu, a 6th-level great saint. Seeing this, Little Loli and the others couldn't help but be shocked. When did a great saint's strength become so terrifying? He could actually kill an enemy 2 levels above him. One must know that in the holy world, it was normal for some geniuses to kill enemies 1 or 2 levels above them. It wasn't that there weren't people who could kill enemies 1 level above them, but it was very, very rare. Other than the monster Morong Yu, there was no one else who could kill an enemy 2 realms higher than himself. In fact, there were many reasons why Morong Yu had such strength. The most important was that he was a soul-sanctified saint. If it weren't for the soul attack, Bai Lin would have just stood there and let him kill him. he probably wouldn't have been able to kill him. Secondly, Morong Yu's body was extremely strong and could directly resist Bai Lin's aura. Otherwise, if Morong Yu couldn't even get close to Bai Lin and enter the range of his soul attack, it would be useless no matter how strong his soul power was. Also, his strength was indeed very strong. Even without a low-grade saint artifact, his body had the ability to kill a high-level undead realm expert. And this powerful strength combined with his powerful body allowed him to resist the aura of a low-level undead realm expert. Of course, there was another important reason. Morong Yu's treasures and battle skills were just as strong. If it weren't for God's descent affecting his mind, he wouldn't have been able to quickly kill Bai Lin. None of the 4 conditions could be missing. Without one, it wouldn't be Morong Yu killing Bai Lin, but Bai Lin killing him. The holy world was vast and there were countless monstrous geniuses. But there were just too few people who met all 4 conditions. There was almost none. Of course, there should be such people in the holy world, but they just hadn't heard of them. When Bai Lin was killed, a powerful and terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the back mountain of the Shattered Star sect. A beam of holy light shot into the sky and condensed into a solid form. It seemed to pierce through the heavens. The aura swept out in all directions like a tide, enveloping the entire Shattered Star sect and Shattered Star City. It even extended hundreds of millions of miles away. What a terrifying aura! Countless saints were enveloped by this aura. Even those who had reached the ancient saint realm couldn't help but tremble. Their souls seemed to be suppressed. The aura of a holy ruler. Someone from the Shattered Star sect has broken through to the holy ruler realm. The nearby ancient saints were shocked. Bai Changlao has finally taken the final step and reached the holy ruler realm. Our Shattered Star sect has one more holy ruler. Although the disciples of the Fragmentary Star sect were suppressed to the point of suffocation, they were different from the others. But they were all overjoyed. The more holy rulers they had, the stronger the Shattered Star sect would be, and the more benefits they would receive. But soon, they discovered that Bai Changlau's terrifying aura, which had suppressed them to the point of being unable to move, suddenly went berserk. It seemed to contain a towering rage. "Ah! Who killed my son?" Bai Changlao roared angrily. Then, the disciples of the Shattered Star sect saw a streak of light rise from the back mountain. It tore through the void and flew out of the Shattered Star sect. As the streak of light flew further and further away, the terrifying aura enveloping them also quickly dissipated. Bai Lin, the city lord of Shattered Star City, was killed? Hearing Bai Changlau's roar, countless people of the Shattered Star sect were stunned. However, the expressions of some of the experts of the Shattered Star sect changed. Bai Changlau's son was killed at the same time as his breakthrough. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Could it be that the enemy's sect deliberately did this to kill Bai Changlao, who had just broken through? And so, after Bai Changlao, several streaks of light shot into the sky, emitting terrifying auras. They tore through the void and chased after Bai Changlao. Each of them emitted an aura that was several times stronger than Bai Changlau's. They were all holy rulers of the Shattered Star sect. They had broken through earlier than Bai Changlao, so they were naturally much stronger than Bai Changlao, who had just broken through to the holy ruler realm. Bai Lin was actually Bai Changlau's son. That was easy to explain. Otherwise, with so many profound sages and ancient sages, none of them were qualified to become the city lord of Shattered Star City. Bai Lin, a mere imperishable realm cultivator, had become the city lord. However, Morong Yu had actually killed the son and grandson of this newly ascended holy ruler. The enmity between him and this holy ruler was huge. However, not to mention that Morong Yu didn't know that Bai Lin had a holy ruler as his father. Even if he knew, he would still kill him. He even dared to offend the Shattered Star sect, so why would he be afraid of a mere holy ruler? Moreover, Heavenly Fire City wasn't weak either. Hadn't he offended them all the same? However, Morong Yu didn't know any of this. With a wave of his hand, he took Bai Lin's spatial ring into his hand. His incomparably powerful divine sense immediately extended inside. Then, he saw his and the little lowly's phantoms inside the ring. This should be how they tracked us. With a thought, Murong Yu immediately annihilated the two phantoms. Then, a white bead appeared in his line of sight. Just as he was about to investigate this bead, he heard the little lowly's anxious voice. Turning his head, he saw that the little lowly was having a hard time holding on. The three imperishable realm cultivators seemed to be about to break through the shackles of the soaring sky spiritual bell. He immediately put the spatial ring into the Hichu Luoshu world, then stepped in front of the little lowly. Might as well kill them all. Seeing Murong Yu walk over, the little lowly took out a handful of pills and threw them into her mouth. Then, she became energetic. Those pills must be top-grade holy pills to replenish energy. Kill them. Murong Yu was stunned. He originally wanted to kill Bai Lin and then leave. However, these people had chased him for so long that he was full of anger. Can you still hold on? Murong Yu turned to the little lowly. The little lowly nodded fiercely, her murderous intent overflowing. If that's the case, then let's work together to kill them. You're responsible for holding them back for a while. I'll go increase my strength first. These people were much stronger than Bai Lin. With his strength, it would be difficult to kill them one by one. Bai Lin had a few high-grade holy weapons in his spatial ring. After refining them, he could at least increase his cultivation by a small level. The little lowly was stunned. You're going to break through again? However, she quickly reacted. I can't hold on for a day or two. Don't worry. Perhaps I'll be out in a few breaths. With a smile, Murong Yu's figure disappeared in a flash. Chapter 13:22. A few breaths of time? The lowly pursed her lips. Even if Murong Yu was a peerless genius, a peerless monster, there was no way he could break through a minor realm in a few breaths of time. After all, breaking through to the next realm required an extremely long time. Let's see if you can really do it in a few breaths of time. I can't hold on for a day. The little lowly controlled the soaring sky spiritual clock as she began to count. A few hours passed in a flash. Then, Murong Yu's figure appeared in her line of sight. You definitely haven't started cultivating yet. You just went in for a stroll, right? The lowly looked at Murong Yu in disbelief. But soon, her face was filled with shock. Murong Yu was originally a 6th-level great sage. He hadn't even reached the peak of the 6th level. But now, he was an 8th-level great sage. He broke through 2 minor realms in a few breaths of time? The lowly thought she was hallucinating, so she looked at Murong Yu seriously again. Then, she realized she wasn't hallucinating. But wasn't this a little too shocking? You really broke through 2 minor realms? The lowly asked in shock, her face filled with disbelief. As the saying goes, what you see is true. But even if the lowly saw it clearly, she still couldn't believe it. It was just too hard to believe. Peak of the 8th-level great sage. Murong Yu smiled, his face filled with confidence. When he was a 6th-level great sage, Murong Yu was strong enough to kill a high-level great sage. After breaking through 2 minor realms, Murong Yu felt like he could fight Bai Lin directly. He didn't even need to use soul attacks to kill him. In other words, Murong Yu's strength was comparable to a 1st-level undead realm expert. The lowly still looked at Murong Yu in shock. How did you do it? Because of her shock, her hand trembled. The undead realm experts of the Shattered Star sect almost knocked her out of the soaring spirit bell and sent her flying. At this moment, the 3 imperishable stage experts were roaring furiously, their faces flushed red with anger. The 3 of them were trapped by an undead realm expert. This was simply too humiliating. If word of this got out, how could they still have the face to stay in this world? Could it be time acceleration? You can control the rules of time? Little Lowly suddenly exclaimed. Her voice was a little sharp. Murong Yu's face darkened. If I could control the laws of time, I would have killed them long ago. Time acceleration is real, but that's just the ability of my treasure. A treasure that can accelerate time? Is it Hichu Luoshu? The little loli stared at Murongyu. She even had the thought of chopping Murongyu to death with her axe, and then snatching the Hichu Luoshu. You control the great sky soaring spiritual bell. I'll go kill the three of them. In the end, the little loli did not do anything to Murongyu. Instead, she wanted to give Murongyu control of the great spirit clock. Murongyu rolled his eyes. The great sky soaring spiritual bell was the little loli's treasure. It had recognized her as its master. Even if she gave Murongyu control it, Murongyu would only be able to use a small portion of its power. Whether that level of power could trap the three undead realm experts was still a question. Leave your mind imprint on it and erase my mind imprint, the little loli said without a care in the world. Murongyu's face showed surprise. He jokingly said, "You're not afraid that I'll swallow your treasure after this? This treasure is at least of the peerless rank, right?" Little loli immediately looked at Murongyu with disdain. "If you're really so despicable, then I'll take it that I misjudged you. But you're a prodigal son. I'm really worried that you'll refine this sacred treasure. But forget it. If you refine it, then refine it. Hurry up." As she spoke, the little loli became impatient. Murongyu muttered to himself for a moment, then attached his mind to the great sky soaring spiritual bell. With little loli's strength, after controlling this sacred treasure, she would no longer be able to control the huge axe. And if Murongyu controlled this sacred treasure, little loli would be able to free up her hands to attack the three undead realm experts. It should be known that the huge axe ignored any power. So much so that Murongyu's mind already imagined the three undead realm experts being chopped to death by little loli's axe. Because little loli had taken the initiative, Murongyu directly imprinted his mind on the great sky soaring spiritual bell. Immediately, his incomparably enormous power surged into the great sky soaring spiritual bell like a torrent. Rumble! Receiving Murongyu's incomparably enormous power, the great sky soaring spiritual bell fiercely shook. An aura several times more powerful than before burst out, intimidating the 10,000 worlds. Suddenly, the great sky soaring spiritual bell, which had been frantically trembling from the bombardment of the three undead realm experts and was about to be sent flying, suddenly stabilized in the void, remaining motionless. But the three undead realm experts felt as if they had sunk into a swamp. An incomparably enormous power was surging from all directions, suppressing them and making it difficult for them to move. Even the power in their bodies had stagnated. This sacred treasure is so powerful. Murongyu was startled. If it was only suppressing one of the three, I'm afraid they wouldn't even have the ability to resist. Even if it's a high-level undead stage expert, it should be able to suppress him. Moreover, Murongyu discovered that the power of the great sky soaring spiritual bell that he was currently using was perhaps not even a tenth of its original power. Most importantly, this great sky soaring spiritual bell could display its power regardless of the realm of the person. Suppressing enemies above their realm was not a problem at all. Of course, the stronger one was, the more powerful the power would be. Murongyu had a feeling that if he reached the profound sage realm, this great sky soaring spiritual bell might be able to suppress super powerhouses of the Saint King realm. Seeing Murongyu suppress the three undead realm experts to the point that they were almost unable to move after taking over, the little loli couldn't help but feel depressed. Wasn't this gap too big? She was an undead realm expert, all right? Compared to Murongyu, she was a whole realm higher. In fact, this was because Murongyu had broken through two more minor realms. If he had controlled the great sky soaring spiritual bell before killing Bai Lin, he probably wouldn't have been able to suppress these three undead realm experts. Glaring at Murongyu somewhat unhappily, the little loli once again took out a handful of pills and swallowed them. Presumably, controlling the great sky soaring spiritual bell, had consumed a lot of her energy. However, these holy pills of hers were also miraculous. After swallowing them, she was immediately full of energy. So, carrying the giant axe, she turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the three suppressed people. Seeing the little lowly coming over, the three undead realm experts showed disdainful smiles on their faces. Being trapped and unable to escape was one thing, and being able to kill them was another. They were confident that even if they stood there and let the little lowly hack at them, the little lowly wouldn't be able to kill them. This was the gap between the undead realm and the undead realm. Unfortunately, what they didn't know was that if the little lowly was an ordinary undead realm sage, she might not be able to kill them. However, the little lowly was no ordinary sage. Just as the little lowly was about to make her move, Murong Yu's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. "Kill the one in gray first." The little lowly couldn't help being startled, but she still swung her axe at the gray-robed undead realm expert. Soul attack. Almost at the same time the little lowly made her move, Murong Yu launched a soul attack on the expert. An incomparably strong aura of death instantly shrouded the gray-robed undead realm expert's mind. Almost at the same time he reacted, Murong Yu's soul power had already rushed into his soul space like a torrent, quickly strangling his soul. The gray-robed undead realm expert was shocked. He hurriedly gathered his power and rushed into the soul space, wanting to crush Murong Yu's soul power. However, at this moment, the soaring great spiritual bell fiercely shook. An extremely powerful force directly bombarded his body. His entire body was sent flying out in an instant, and the little lowly's axe just happened to come down. From afar, it looked like the gray-robed undead realm expert had automatically met the little lowly's axe. Serene didn't know why Murong Yu sent him flying, but the gray-robed undead realm expert didn't care. He didn't even plan to block the attack of the huge axe. As a result, the other two undead realm experts were shocked to see the gray-robed undead realm expert being cut in half by the little lowly's axe like a piece of tofu. Then there was no more then. The gray-robed undead realm expert's life had completely disappeared along with him being cut in half. Seeing this scene, the two undead realm experts were deeply shocked. A bad feeling welled up in their hearts. There are two more. The little lowly cheered, then looked at one of the remaining two. It's him. With a thought, Murong Yu's enormous soul power once again strangled over. However, this person didn't even get hit by the little lowly before his soul was destroyed by Murong Yu. Because after one person died, the soaring great spiritual bell's power skyrocketed, already suppressing the two undead realm experts to the point where they couldn't move. Moreover, their power seemed to have completely frozen. Therefore, Murong Yu's soul power went straight in, directly destroying the opponent's soul. However, Murong Yu only destroyed the consciousness in his soul, then grabbed the soul from a distance. The soul of an undead realm expert was a great supplement, able to increase the strength of his soul. As for the soul of the undead realm expert that was killed by the little lowly, although Murong Yu didn't want to waste it, he discovered that the person's soul didn't have any power, as if his soul power had been swallowed by the huge axe. "Big baddie, you actually dare to steal from me!" The little lowly angrily glared at Murong Yu, then charged at the last undead realm expert with her axe. With a thought, Murong Yu's soul power once again strangled over. He didn't want this person's soul to also become trash, unable to be used. However, at this moment, several extremely terrifying auras quickly swept over from the distance. In an instant, they crossed a distance of a few trillion miles and rushed over. In fact, before they even got close, that terrifying aura had already attacked Murong Yu's soul, causing it to tremble. One could imagine how terrifying their strength was. Chapter 13:23. Stop! Before Murong Yu and the others could even see the person's appearance, a thunderous voice tore through the void and rumbled through the air. Wherever it passed, even the void was shattered. Boom! As soon as the voice reached them, a blinding holy light exploded from the little girl's body. However, she was sent flying like a broken rag doll. Fortunately, the power sealed in her body exploded in time, saving her life. Thus, even though he was sent flying, he wasn't injured at all. It was just that his chi and blood were churning. However, Murong-yu spat out a mouthful of blood. She was sent flying like a little Lolita. Tianmeng had left a seal on him that could block many powerful attacks and protect his life. However, Murong-yu had to take the initiative to activate this power. Of course, if Murong-yu was truly on the verge of death, the power would activate on its own. What terrifying power! The life force in his body quickly washed over him, and his injured body immediately recovered to its peak state. However, those people's violent and powerful auras were getting stronger and stronger, because they were getting closer and closer. They're even stronger than those from Skyfire City. Even if Broken Finger still had power, it'd be difficult to kill them. Those from Skyfire City are all ancient saints. Then they're Saint Kings? Haha. Little bastard, you're dead. Those are all Saint Kings from Shattered Star City. I forgot to tell you, Bai Lin and Bai Yixian are the son and grandson of one of the great elders of Shattered Star City. He should have broken through to the Saint King realm. Just as Murong-yu was wondering about the newcomers' identities, the Shattered Star sect cultivator bound by the bell suddenly laughed arrogantly. Murong-yu's pupils constricted, and a vicious look flashed through his eyes. Immediately, violent soul force shot out of his forehead again. It tore through space and viciously charged into the soul space of the imperishable realm expert from the Shattered Star sect. You still dare to kill me? The imperishable stage expert's face was filled with disbelief. In his mind, Murong-yu already knew that it was a saint ruler from the Broken Star sect. Under normal circumstances, shouldn't he have fled immediately? Murong-yu sneered and directly erased the spiritual consciousness of the other party's soul. At this moment, the imperishable stage expert's face was still filled with disbelief. Little bastard, you still dare to kill people. Another angry roar was heard. This time, although Murong-yu was prepared, he was still shaken to the point of spitting out blood. His fleshly body, which had reached the level of a low-grade sacred artifact, was actually shaken to the point where cracks began to appear. As for the little loli, she was once again sent flying. I'm so angry. After being sent flying twice in a row without being able to retaliate, the little loli's anger soared to the sky. She bared her fangs and claws. But it was useless. Murong-yu turned his head and looked deeply at the saint rulers who were quickly approaching. His figure flashed, and he rushed to the little loli's side with a teleport. In the next moment, he grabbed the little loli and flashed into the Hichu Luoshu world. Then, he teleported away. Rumble, just as Hichu Luoshu teleported away, a monstrous hand with a terrifying aura that could shatter heaven and earth came down from the 9 heavens. The void and earth within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles were torn apart. But Murong-yu had long since disappeared without a trace. He escaped. In the blink of an eye, the saint rulers from the Broken Star sect appeared where Murong-yu had been. When they saw the corpse of the undead realm expert, the saint rulers of the Broken Star sect all frowned in anger. This was especially true for Bai Changlao, Bai Lin's father. Terrifying killing intent erupted from his body like a storm, condensing into a solid impact that rippled the surrounding void. A few saint rulers spread out their tremendous divine senses, covering a radius of hundreds of millions of kilometers. But they didn't find anything. Unable to find Murong-yu and the others, Bai Changlao became more and more furious. Powerful and terrifying forces kept rushing out, trying to shake Murong-yu out of the void. But it was all in vain, because Murong-yu was long gone. In the end, Bai Changlao and the others gave up. The giant hand reached out and a scene flashed in their eyes. It was the scene of Murong-yu killing Bai Lin and the others. Little bastard! When he saw Murong-yu, Bai Changlao punched out in anger and directly shattered Murong Yu's image. One could only imagine how angry he was. You killed my grandson. This is an irreconcilable enmity. Everyone, I've decided to hunt you down. Before that, I'll leave the shattered star sect to you. After a long while, Bai Changlao fiercely suppressed the anger in his heart and turned to the saint rulers of the shattered star sect. Then, before the saint rulers could react, he had already soared into the sky and quickly disappeared from their sight. In the Hichu Luoshu, Murong Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. But under the cleansing of the life force, he recovered to his peak state in an instant. Good thing I came in a bit earlier. Otherwise, even the Hichu Luoshu wouldn't have been able to come in if I had been a bit slower. And if I didn't enter the Hichu Luoshu in time, I definitely wouldn't have been able to escape, Murong Yu thought with lingering fear. There was nothing like the Tianmeng broken finger that contained enormous power that could kill a saint ruler. Therefore, before he had absolute strength, he wouldn't come into contact with these super experts in the future. Withdrawing his mind from the great soaring spiritual bell, he returned the heaven-defying sacred artifact to the little lowly, who was sulking alone at the side. This is so infuriating. The little girl's face darkened, and she looked extremely unhappy. If it was before, not to mention saint rulers, even ancestral sages would have to be respectful to her. Who knew that after sneaking out, she would be attacked by some juniors? How could she not feel depressed? But in addition to being depressed, the little girl also felt that this was the real life. Her previous life was really too boring. No matter where they went, they were treated with respect and were firmly protected, just like flowers in a greenhouse. Although she was suffering setbacks now, this was how she could grow quickly. When she thought of this, the depressed look on the little girl's face immediately disappeared, and she recovered her original confident appearance. However, her quick change of expression made Murong Yu shake his head continuously. As the saying goes, a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. As long as it was a woman, it was the same regardless of age. "Husband, are you okay now?" Yu Mengqing and the others walked over and asked with concern. It's okay. We killed all those people." Even though he had provoked someone even more powerful than him. "But in the future, we will come back and kill all of them." Before Murong Yu could answer, the little girl chattered on about what had happened in the past few days, like a child showing off to an adult. Although Yu Mengqing and the others smiled, they were still a little scared. Those were imperishable realm experts, and there were even saint rulers. But in addition to being worried, they were also happy for Murong Yu. Because Murong Yu was getting stronger and stronger. Murong Yu didn't join them, but picked up the pearl that he had taken from Bai Lin and studied it. The power contained in this pearl wasn't strong, and it wasn't even as strong as a low-grade saint weapon. But when Murong Yu recognized it as its master, he was shocked to find that this pearl could contain some people's aura, and it could create the appearance of the original aura. What surprised Murong Yu the most was that the original aura created by this pearl could actually track the original aura. Although surprised, Murong Yu quickly figured out the theory behind it. The reason why the original aura could track the original aura was because it reacted with the aura of the original aura in the void. However, this pearl wasn't omnipotent, and it could only track within a certain distance. Once it exceeded this distance, it would be useless. To a certain extent, it was even more convenient than Murong Yu tracking the original aura. After all, Murong Yu could only follow the aura when tracking the original aura. But this pearl's illusion could sense the position of the person being tracked from a certain distance, and then it could directly travel in a straight line. This should be just a replica. The legendary saint weapon can be tracked as long as it doesn't leave the holy world. The little girl walked over after showing off, and said something shocking. "There really is such a saint weapon?" Murong Yu was shocked. "Don't worry, it's said that the saint weapon has gone missing. Some people suspect that it's been destroyed. So you don't have to worry about being tracked." The little girl smiled. But even replicas are rare in the holy world. The Shattered Star sect is already heaven-defying to have one. We don't have to worry about being tracked down. Let's hope so. Murong Yu smiled and said indifferently. However, they did not leave He Tu and Luo Shu for the rest of the time. After killing the other 3 imperishable stage experts, Murong Yu took all of their storage rings. Although each of them didn't have many high-grade saint weapons, they still had several. It was enough for Murong Yu to break through to the next level. And so, Murong Yu began cultivating again. After refining 7 or 8 high-grade saint weapons, he broke through to the peak of the 9th level Great Sage. He was only 1 step away from the Undying stage. Once he broke through to the Undying stage, time would have no effect on him. This was because his lifespan would be endless. He would truly be immortal. Of course, it was only immortality. It didn't mean that he wouldn't die. After all, who knew how many Undying stage experts had died at Murong Yu's hands? Chapter 1324. The Desert of Death was located in the far west of the holy nation of Nine. On the other side of the Desert of Death was another superpower of the human race in the holy world, the Blood Dragon Holy Nation. The Desert of Death was not originally called the Desert of Death. However, after many people died, it became the Desert of Death. It was a forbidden zone for sages. Anyone who entered the Desert of Death would be killed. Therefore, after a long time, no one dared to enter the Desert of Death. In fact, almost no one dared to stay near the Desert of Death. On this day, a group of 8 people tore through the void and shot over from afar. Finally, they stopped in the void outside the Desert of Death. They were Murong Yu's group. After Murong Yu's strength broke through to the peak of the 9th level Great Sage, he left Hichu Luoshu and rushed over. After several months of rushing, they finally appeared here. Is this the Desert of Death that countless sages would turn pale at the mention of? I don't think it's anything special, Kurlan said casually as she looked at the endless desert. Indeed, in their line of sight, the desert before them was calm and tranquil. What entered their eyes was a yellow sky, but there was no danger. Even Murong Yu looked at Yi suspiciously, as if he was questioning something. Only Yi's face was solemn. He looked at the desert as if he was looking at a prehistoric beast. I've heard about this Desert of Death for a long time, but I never had the chance. Now I finally have the chance to enter. Little Loli carried her giant axe and jumped up. She could not help but rush in. The Desert of Death is very dangerous. It's still fine in the periphery. However, the deeper we go, the more dangerous it is. We can't be careless, Yi said with a solemn expression. Murong Yu nodded and released his powerful divine sense. Then, the group stepped into the desert. Whoosh! When the group stepped into the Desert of Death, they were shocked. The temperature inside the desert was completely different from outside. The temperature outside was only slightly higher than the other places. However, the temperature inside the desert was countless times higher than outside. In an instant, Mu Liue and the others felt as if they were in a furnace. Although the temperature was much higher, they could still withstand it with their strength. Thus, they shot toward the depths of the Desert of Death. Not long after Murong Yu and the others entered the Desert of Death, a figure with a terrifying aura flew over from afar. In the end, they stopped outside the Desert of Death. He was none other than the saint ruler of the Broken Star sect, Bai Changlao. Entered the Desert of Death? Bai Changlao's immense divine consciousness spread out and extended into the Desert of Death. However, he did not see Murong Yu and the others. If Murong Yu and the others were not dead, then they must have left the range of his spiritual will. Could it be that he wants to cross the Desert of Death and go to the Blood Dragon Saint country to avoid being hunted down? Bai Changlao frowned and thought. If Murong Yu knew what Bai Changlao was thinking, he would definitely laugh out loud. Bai Changlao thought too highly of himself. Murong Yu did not enter this place to avoid their pursuit. He entered this place because of the cultivation method in the Desert of Death. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, you can't escape from me. Bai Chonglao sneered and rushed into the desert of death in a flash. Not long after Bai Chonglao entered, several auras that were even more powerful than Bai Chonglao shot over from afar. They were none other than the many experts of the Sky Slaughter sect who had come to hunt down Murongyu. All of them were Saint King Realm super experts. They all entered the desert of death? A saint ruler frowned. Does that little bastard know that we're hunting him down? Is that why he lured us into the desert of death? He has a treasure that can travel through the void. Maybe they've already left the desert of death. Nonsense. The Sky Slaughter sect, Sky Fire City, and Broken Star sect's hunting order has caused an uproar in the Ninein province. Countless people want to kill Murongyu. Moreover, after knowing that Murongyu has a treasure that can travel through the void, even more people are hunting him down. As he spoke, the saint ruler glanced at a saint who was shooting over from afar. It was an ancient saint. At this moment, he was looking at the desert of death hesitantly. The third saint ruler raised his eyebrows and looked at another saint ruler in confusion. That saint ruler could only explain, for the past few months, Murongyu has swaggered through the provinces and cities. How could he be afraid of us? I don't think he's just luring us in. I guess he entered the desert of death with a purpose. Maybe there's something good in the desert of death? The other people's eyes lit up. Murongyu killed Li Di and destroyed one of our saint weapons. We can kill him and take his treasure that can travel through the void. If there are other treasures in there, we can take them as well. With our strength, no matter how dangerous the desert of death is, we can still give it a try. Then, the experts of the Sky Slaughter sect rushed into the desert of death. After them, the ancient saint who had been hesitating finally gritted his teeth and rushed in. He had no enmity with Murongyu. He just wanted to take Murongyu's treasure that could travel through the void. Not long after, the experts of Sky Fire City also chased after them. There were also other experts and forces that had arrived. Although some people hesitated and didn't dare to enter the desert of death, most of them still rushed in. It's so hot. Sidu Xian stopped and wiped the sweat on her forehead. She was speechless as she looked at the vast desert that was the same color as the sky. Aside from Murongyu, everyone else was in the same situation as Sidu Xian. They were all sweating profusely, so much so that even their clothes were soaked. At a glance, everyone's faces were red from the heat, and wisps of white steam were coming out of their heads. Originally, they had ascended from the sky, but after entering the desert of death, they quickly came down to walk on the ground. In the sky, the temperature was higher, and the consumption was greater. I'm so thirsty. Hubby, do you have any water? Lan Kier looked at Murongyu with her big, watery eyes and a pitiful look on her face. Murongyu glared at her, but he still took out some water from the Hichu Luoshu for everyone to drink. The Hichu Luoshu was similar to a real world, so it naturally didn't lack water. This desert of death is really worthy of its name. We haven't encountered any danger yet, but the temperature is already so terrifying. Gongsun Ningyu patted her chest, which was still a little young, and showed a look of lingering fear on her face. Hearing this, everyone nodded. They were all saints. Even if they were roasted by fire, they wouldn't be hurt at all. Furthermore, things like sweating and feeling thirsty had long been out of their reach. In fact, except for Murongyu and Yu Mengqing, everyone else had an extremely high starting point. After they were born, they were immune to the cold and heat. Sweating was still okay. They would still sweat if they were in a more urgent situation. But thirst. It was the first time they had such a phenomenon. This is only the edge of the desert of death. Legend has it that the deepest part of the desert of death is a place where even experts like the Holy Emperor don't dare to enter. When he wiped the sweat on his forehead and said in a deep voice, if it weren't for the fact that he wanted to repay Murongyu for saving his life, he would never set foot in this desert again. At this rate, you will be roasted dry soon. All of you, enter my spatial treasure. Murongyu glanced at everyone. The girls shook their heads. We can't miss such a good opportunity. It won't be too late to go in if we really can't withstand it. Let's go, quickly go in. Thus, everyone continued to move forward. But not long after, they all stopped and looked at Murongyu. Don't you guys feel oppressed? Like there's an unstoppable danger attacking us? Murongyu's senses were the strongest. He was the one who felt the danger and stopped. Everyone looked at each other. Then Gongsun Ningyu frowned and said, I feel the same. I feel like we are being watched by someone. Do you guys feel the same? After Gongsun Ningyu, everyone finally felt that something was wrong. You guys, what is that? Suddenly, little Loli's high-pitched voice sounded. Everyone turned their heads to look, only to see an incomparably huge yellow light shooting over from afar. Murongyu's mind moved, and an enormous divine sense spread out. At this moment, Wen Yi's face suddenly changed, and he exclaimed, Death Sandstorm. Before anyone could ask, Wen Yi quickly explained, This is the sandstorm of the Death Desert, sweeping up yellow sand. The bigger the sandstorm, the more powerful it is. Legend has it that even existences like the primal chaos ancestor sage would be easily torn apart by the death sandstorm. Moreover, in addition to the hurricane and yellow sand, there are other terrifying things in the death sandstorm. Those things are extremely powerful and can easily tear apart super powerhouses. Quick, we have to leave this place. Otherwise, when the death sandstorm comes, we will die without a burial place. Wen Yi was anxious. At this moment, Murongyu's divine sense had already reached out. However, before he could touch the death sandstorm, his divine sense was already shattered. One could imagine how terrifying the death sandstorm was. Moreover, Murongyu was shocked to find that the death sandstorm he saw was only about 100 million miles long. However, in just a few breaths, the death sandstorm had already grown to 110 million miles long. Moreover, it was still expanding rapidly. Whoosh! At the same time, a stream of light shot out from the depths of the ground in front of the death sandstorm, and then turned into a stream of light that tore towards Murongyu. Sage Ruler. Murongyu's pupils shrank. The person he saw was obviously a Sage Ruler super powerhouse. However, that person did not even look at the death sandstorm. The moment he appeared, he fled for his life. One could imagine that he could not withstand the death sandstorm. If a Sage Ruler was like that, what about them? Chapter 1325. Let's go. Murongyu's expression suddenly changed. With a thought, a huge force rushed out and enveloped Yu Mengqing and the others. Then, he took them into the Hichu Luoshu world. However, the little Loli was the only one who resisted and was not sucked in. Murongyu frowned slightly. This was not the time to be stubborn. Hence, he grabbed the little Loli's arm and was about to drag her into the Hichu Luoshu. However, just as he was about to enter the Hichu Luoshu, he hesitated. The death sandstorm was too terrifying. After entering the Hichu Luoshu, Murongyu had to immediately teleport out of the death desert. Otherwise, he might not be able to withstand the death sandstorm. Moreover, even if he could withstand the death sandstorm, Sha Bo would not be killed. However, who knew where the death sandstorm would send him? If he wanted to teleport out, he would have to leave the death desert. He would have to come back in the future. However, what if he encountered the death sandstorm again? One must know that the death sandstorm was the most common thing in the death desert. In just a moment, Murongyu made up his mind. After throwing the little Loli into the Hichu Luoshu, he used his speed and shot to the side. The death sandstorm was sweeping in his direction. If he went back the way he came, he would definitely be caught up by the death sandstorm. Hence, if he wanted to leave the range of the death sandstorm, he would have to think of a way from the side. Angelic wings. Teleport. Murongyu raised his strength and speed to the limit and shot into the distance. At this moment, the holy ruler that Murongyu saw earlier had already flown close to Murongyu. When he saw that Murong Yu did not go back the way he came but flew to the side, he could not help but be stunned. Then, his face turned red as he turned around and shot toward Murong Yu's direction. In just a moment, he had already passed by Murong Yu and quickly disappeared into the horizon. And Murong Yu was only eating the dust behind this holy king. Even if Murong Yu went all out, his speed was not even 1% of a Saint King's. However, Murong Yu was not discouraged. After all, there was a gap of 5 major realms between them. Moreover, he was confident that as long as he reached the Saint King realm, his speed would be several times or even dozens of times faster than this Saint King. By the time the Holy King disappeared from Murong Yu's sight, the Death Sandstorm had already closed in on Murong Yu. Moreover, the Death Sandstorm had expanded from 100 million kilometers to 200 million kilometers. Furthermore, it was expanding by over 1 million kilometers in every single instant. Waves of incomparably terrifying power swept over from the direction of the Death Sandstorm like a storm, causing Murong Yu's hair to stand on end. In fact, even his speed was affected because of this. While flying, Murong Yu split a strand of his divine sense to look behind him. Wherever the Death Sandstorm passed, everything was razed to the ground. Even the void was torn apart by the impact. The distance between the two was shrinking rapidly. Is leaving the desert of death the only way? Murong Yu roared in his heart, unwilling to accept this outcome. Oh right, little lowly. Murong Yu had a flash of inspiration as he recalled Murong Yu's ability to travel through the void. Once the two of them combined their powers, their speed would increase by dozens of times. At this moment, the little lowly was sulking in He-Tu and Luo Shu. She had an unhappy look on her face. Although she could travel through the void, she could not leave the He-Tu Luoshu without Murong Yu's permission. Little Lowly could not compare to Little Z in this aspect. Suddenly, a large hand appeared out of thin air above the space where Little Lowly and the others were. Then, before Little Lowly and the others could react, this large hand had already grabbed Little Lowly and dragged her out of the He-Tu Luoshu. Yu Mengqing and the others exclaimed, but then they received Murong Yu's voice transmission and felt relieved. Big Baddie, you're finally willing to let me out? After coming out, Little Lowly said with a smile like a flower. She was not surprised by Murong Yu's large hand at all, because until now, only Murong Yu could directly grab her. If it was anyone else, not to mention grabbing Little Lowly, they couldn't even get close to her. Use all your strength to quickly leave this place with the two of us. Murong Yu's voice sounded in Little Lowly's ears. At this moment, Little Lowly realized that the death sandstorm that was 400 to 500 million miles long was tearing through the void of the death desert and was extremely close to them. It was almost burning their buttocks. Little Lowly rolled her eyes, but she was too lazy to look down on Murong Yu. She immediately increased her strength to the limit. In the next moment, the two incomparably huge spatial powers quickly merged together. With a swoosh, the speed of the two soared by dozens of times and quickly left the place. However, although Murong Yu and Little Lowly's speed soared by dozens of times, the speed of the death sandstorm behind them was also increasing. Every time it grew, the speed of the death sandstorm would soar by a few times. In the end, the distance between Murong Yu and the death sandstorm did not increase. Instead, it became smaller and smaller. After a few days, Little Lowly's spirit was dispirited. In the past few days, both her and Murong Yu's strength and spirit were in a state of overload. If Little Lowly did not have a large number of divine elixir pills to replenish her strength at any time, she would have run out of ammunition and food. However, even so, her spirit was exhausted. Murong Yu was still in a state of full spirit because of the life force and the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life could directly absorb the chaotic energy to replenish the energy he consumed. Meanwhile, the life force was constantly cleansing Murong Yu's body, mind, and soul, making his fatigue disappear quickly. At this time, the death sandstorm had grown to the size of trillions of miles. However, Murong Yu and little Loli's frantic running these past few days was not in vain. They had arrived at the edge of the death sandstorm. However, because the edge was growing larger and larger, they were still unable to escape the range of the death sandstorm. However, because they were at the edge, the death sandstorm was not that terrifying. If they were at the center, even an ancestral sage would be easily killed. I can't hold on any longer. Little Loli's tired voice sounded in Murong Yu's ears. Then let's enter the Hichu Luoshu world. Murong Yu felt a little helpless. After running for so many days, were they finally going to enter the Hichu Luoshu? However, if little Loli could not hold on, he would not be able to escape with his own speed. Hey, the death sandstorm seems to be fading? Just as Murong Yu was about to enter the Hichu Luoshu to teleport away from the death sandstorm, little Loli's surprised voice sounded in his ears. Immediately, Murong Yu looked over. Then, he saw the edge of the death desert begin to rapidly collapse. Then, as if the world was collapsing, the death sandstorm that had been chasing them for several days was quickly annihilated in their line of sight. In less than a few dozen breaths, the death sandstorm that was trillions of miles long disappeared without a trace. The sky once again regained its clarity. However, the death desert was still a stretch of yellow sand. All of this happened suddenly, and it disappeared even more suddenly. Even Murong Yu found it hard to comprehend. Slap, while Murong Yu was shocked, little Loli ruthlessly slapped the back of his head. When Murong Yu turned his head to look at little Loli asked curiously, "Does it hurt?" "It hurts." Murong Yu gritted his teeth. In any case, he was the sect master of the Shenzhen world. Being slapped like this was not in line with his identity. Little Loli suddenly jumped up, "So I wasn't hallucinating. This is real, the death desert has really disappeared." As she spoke, little Loli clapped her hands and cheered. However, Murong Yu's face darkened and he flew into a rage. He grabbed the little Loli and pressed her against his thigh. Then, he raised his right hand and spanked her little butt. "Pa, pa, pa. Oh, it hurts. Big bad guy, you dare to hit me, you're dead." Little Loli cried out in pain. She gritted her teeth and cursed Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu didn't stop there. He was determined to teach this little Loli a lesson today. This was too much. However, after a while, he heard little Loli's cries of pain seem to have changed. Therefore, he stopped and looked at little Loli, wanting to see what was going on. However, when he saw little Loli, his expression changed drastically. The little Loli's face was tender and rosy to begin with. At this moment she looked like a ripe apple. Her pair of big eyes were watery and filled with a misty look. Murong Yu was very familiar with little Loli's expression. In the past, when he had sex with Zhao Jiqing and the rest, they would all look like this when they were aroused. In other words, little Loli actually made a move at this moment. She was aroused by him spanking her butt. Murong Yu's heart flashed with a strong sense of guilt. He quickly let go of little Loli. "You've used up too much energy these few days, quickly recover." After saying that, he left as if he was escaping. The little Loli cast a coquettish glance at Murong Yu, but she quickly regained her senses. Therefore, she began to use her power to suppress all these emotions and began to recover her strength and mind. Not long after, seeing that little Loli had recovered, Murong Yu let Situ Xian and the rest out. "Phew, have we finally escaped the death sandstorm? Are we finally safe?" The girls breathed a sigh of relief. Although they were all in the Hichu Luoshu world and could not see anything outside, they were always on tenterhook. Murong Yu nodded and then looked at Wen-yi. "Where is this in the death desert? How long is it before we reach that place?" Wen-yi shook his head blankly. These few days, Murong Yu and Situ Xian had been flying and did not know how far away they were from their original path. Moreover, the death desert was endless yellow sand, and there was no reference at all. It was basically impossible to determine the direction here. Chapter 13:26. because of the Heaven Fire City, the Sky Slaughter Sect, and the Broken Star Sect's Kill Order, as well as the attraction of the treasures on Murong Yu's body, countless people chased after Murong Yu and the others into the Desert of Death. When Murong Yu encountered the Desert of Death, some unlucky people inevitably encountered the same death sandstorm. These people were not as fast as Murong Yu. In a short period of time, countless experts were torn apart by the death sandstorm and suffered heavy losses. Among them, there were even super experts in the ancient sage realm. However, none of the experts in the King Sage realm died. Experts of this level were too fast. The death sandstorm that Murong Yu encountered was only an ordinary sandstorm and did not pose any threat to them. However, because of the death sandstorm, they had long lost their target, Murong Yu. The Desert of Death was extremely vast. If they wanted to meet Murong Yu again, they could only rely on luck. If that's the case, we can only search slowly. Murong Yu was a little helpless. He could not leave the Desert of Death first and then re-enter, right? He had been running for several days because he did not want to leave the Desert of Death. At this time, little Loli had recovered to her peak and walked over slowly. However, perhaps because of the guilt in his heart, Murong Yu felt that little Loli's eyes were a little strange when she looked at him. She's just a child. She doesn't know anything. Calm down. Calm down. Murong Yu shouted in his heart, trying hard to return to normal. However, just as they were about to leave, Murong Yu's face suddenly darkened. Originally, he was still bright and sunny, but now, he was so gloomy that it seemed like water was about to drip out. This abnormality was immediately noticed by the women. "Husband, what's wrong?" Sidu Xian walked up and asked with concern. Just now, little Xian and the others all ascended, Murong Yu said in a low voice. His face became more and more gloomy. They've all ascended? Hearing this, all the girls exclaimed in surprise. Their faces were as gloomy as Murong Yu's. Murong Xian, Murong Yi, Murong Lin, Murong Yen, Gu Shiyang, Su Hegi, Little Purple, Fiery-Eyed Golden Ape, Big Black Dog, and Murong Yu's disciple Gu Kai had all ascended. Murong Yu was the overlord of the divine world. He controlled the entire divine world. Although he wouldn't be observing the God realm all the time right now, he was still in the God realm. However, as long as something big happened in the God realm, he would be the first to know. Moreover, Murong Xian and the others were people that Murong Yu paid close attention to. Before this, he had repeatedly reminded them not to ascend for the time being. Because of Murong Yu, the humans and demons in the sky hated him to the core. Apart from these two races, the sacred race also didn't treat the human race well. With their strength, once they ascended, it would definitely be a disaster. Once their identities were exposed, they might be killed immediately. Or, he could capture them and use them to threaten Murong Yu. Originally, Murong Yu wanted to let them ascend after finding a place to stay in the sacred world. But now, Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. In his heart, he was extremely furious. Different from Murong Yu, Yu Mengqing and the others were only filled with worry. Especially after their experiences these few days, they had a deeper understanding of the dangers of the sacred world. The more they understood this dangerous world, the more worried they were. Forget it, the children and grandchildren have their own fortune. They won't really grow up under my wings all day long. It's time for them to go out and explore. After a long time, Murong Yu exhaled, and his expression returned to normal. Let it go just like that? Why don't we go look for them? Yu Mengqing looked worried. The other women also looked at Murong Yu with hopeful eyes. They had the same thoughts as Yu Mengqing. Murong Yu shook his head. It's not that I don't want to look for them. It's just that the sacred world is so big, we don't know where they ascended to. Moreover, every ascender was random. If we want to look for them, we need to be strong. Thinking about it, it seemed like Murong Yu's words made sense. The sacred world was so big, looking for a few people was like looking for a needle in a haystack. It depended on luck. But if they were strong enough, as long as they called for help, they wouldn't even need to do anything. There would naturally be people serving them. Thus, everyone gathered their thoughts and continued on their way. However, the women might not be as open-minded as Murong Yu. They were much quieter along the way. The little loli who was chattering nonstop also seemed to have a change in personality. She actually didn't make a sound. The weather in the Death Desert became hotter. The speed of the women slowed down. They were sweating, thirsty, and other situations constantly appeared on their bodies. There's actually an oasis in front? Suddenly, Murong Yu's face was filled with astonishment as he spoke. Everyone looked at Murong Yu in a daze, because their divine senses were far inferior to Murong Yu's. But soon, the oasis appeared in their sight. It was an oasis with a radius of hundreds of miles. It was filled with green plants and there were even lakes. The scenery was beautiful. Is this an illusion? Gongsun Ningyu said in a daze. Everyone quickly nodded. After all, the Death Desert was too terrifying. There was actually an oasis in it? It was simply too unbelievable. This isn't an illusion. These oases do exist. And there are quite a few of them. Moreover, the oases won't be affected by the Death Desert. Whether it's the Death Sandstorm or the other beasts in the Death Desert, they won't enter the oases. This oasis is just a small oasis. I've seen an oasis with a radius of tens of millions of miles. It's just like a continent. Wenyi looked and then explained. So magical? Murong Yu and the others were curious. However, they hadn't encountered any of the beasts in the Death Desert. They didn't know what kind of beasts they were. But looking at Wenyi's pale face, those beasts must be very terrifying. Wenyi nodded and looked at the oasis in the distance. His face suddenly became excited. Murong Yu, I think we're almost there. It's not far from the oasis, and it seems like we've come at the right time. Wenyi looked at Murong Yu and said excitedly. Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat, and his face showed a touch of joy. What do you mean? Do you know why the Death Desert is called the Death Desert? Other than the extremely terrifying Death Sandstorm and the harsh environment, the various beasts in the Death Desert also play an important role. You might find it strange because we haven't seen any beasts after entering the Death Desert. That's because all the beasts ran to that place. Rumble before Wenyi's voice died down, a loud sound like 10,000 horses galloping came from the front. Then, Murong Yu and the others saw a cloud of yellow sand rising up into the sky. Instantly their faces changed. Was it another death sandstorm? An extremely powerful aura swept over and suppressed everyone, and even their souls seemed to be trembling. But this terrifying aura was different from the death sandstorm. The death sandstorm's aura was powerful, shocking, and suppressing people to the point that they couldn't resist. But this aura was filled with violence, brutality, and blood. It was two completely different things. Oh no, it's a beast tide. Wenyi's face suddenly changed. Just as Murong Yu and the others were about to ask a question, the flood had already appeared in front of them. It was a variety of beasts that emitted an extremely violent aura. In the sky and on the ground, there were countless ferocious beasts. There were huge beasts that were thousands or even tens of thousands of miles long. There were also beasts that were pocket-sized. But these beasts all emitted a powerful aura. And they were all beasts that Murong Yu and the others had never seen before. Now, these countless ferocious beasts had gathered together, forming a torrent of ferocious beasts. It was vast and mighty, and it was extremely visually impactful. This was a beast tide. When Murong Yu was in the immortal realm, he had seen the scene of billions of immortals fighting. But compared to the beast tide, it paled in comparison. Let's hurry to that oasis. Otherwise, we'll be torn apart by the beast tide. Wenyi's face was ugly as he said fearfully. This beast tide was so terrifying that even a Saint King realm cultivator could be torn apart. Go! Immediately, Murong Yu and the others rose into the air and shot toward the oasis. During this process, Murong Yu and the others saw streaks of light tear through the sky of the Death Desert and rush toward the oasis. Hurry up, we won't be able to make it. Murong Yu was a little anxious. In the end, he directly put Yu Mengqing and the others into the Hichu Luoshu. The next moment, he unfolded his angelic wings, raised his speed to the limit and shot out quickly. Rumble, a series of footsteps rushed over, shaking the entire Death Desert. The sound was earth-shattering and extremely terrifying. While Murong Yu was shooting toward the oasis, the beast tied in front of them had already approached the other side of the oasis. However, the strange thing was that when the beasts encountered the oasis, they consciously took a detour around it. They didn't even fly over the oasis. It was as if there was something in the oasis that they were afraid of. An extremely powerful aura swept over, causing Murong Yu's body to sway a little. His speed was less than a tenth of his usual speed, but he was getting closer to the oasis. Ha ha ha! At this moment, a burst of loud laughter suddenly came from the oasis. Then, an extremely huge fist tore through the void, and without any warning, viciously smashed toward Murong Yu. Chapter 13:27. At this time, Murong Yu and the beast tide had already arrived at the edge of the oasis. The terrifying aura that erupted from the beast tide even blasted Murong Yu's body, which had reached the level of a low-grade sacred tool. One could imagine how terrifying the power of the beast tide was. In the oasis, the timing of the attack was perfect, right when Murong Yu was about to enter the oasis. At this time, once Murong Yu was sent flying, he would rush into the beast tide and be torn to pieces by the endless fierce beasts. It could be seen how vicious the attacker was. In a hurry, Murong Yu looked at the high-level Undying Saint who attacked, but he found that he had no impression of him at all. Since he didn't know him, why did he attack? Then there was only one possibility. That guy killed for fun and wanted to see Murong Yu torn apart by the beast tide. At this moment, Murong Yu's heart burst with a soaring killing intent. However, the high-level Undying Saint who attacked had a look of disdain on his face. In his opinion, even if Murong Yu could dodge his punch, he would still be devoured by the beast tide. Taking a step back, even if Murong Yu had dodged his attack, he had also avoided the fate of being torn apart by the beast tide. However, he was just a 9th-level great saint. So what if he killed him? Could he do anything to him? Unfortunately, Murong Yu disappointed the high-level Undying Saint. If he was just an ordinary great saint, he would definitely not be able to dodge this attack. But now he just swayed his body, avoided the attack of the Undying Saint, and landed on the oasis. The moment he entered the oasis, the beast tide outside rushed over like a stormy wave. The momentum shook the sky and was extremely terrifying. After stepping on the ground, Murong Yu looked coldly at the Undying Saint who attacked him, and slowly approached him with murderous intent. The high-level Undying Saint was just stunned, and then he smiled coldly. Looking at Murong Yu who was slowly walking over, his eyes were full of disdain. "Why are you attacking me?" Murong Yu came in front of this person and shouted coldly. The high-level Undead Realm expert smiled faintly. "Do I need a reason to kill you? All right, since you insist on a reason, then it's because I don't like you." Ha ha. Murong Yu smiled and looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. "Let me tell you something. Actually, I don't like you either. So, you can die now." Before he could finish his sentence, Murong Yu's big hand suddenly reached out and grabbed the other party. The sneer on the high-level Undying Realm Saint's face deepened. However, his attack was not slow either. He threw a punch at Murong Yu. "Little bastard, you actually dared to attack me? You must be tired of living." The high-level Undying Stage Saint laughed sinisterly as his fist suddenly accelerated towards Murong Yu. Bang! In the blink of an eye, their fists fiercely collided. Suddenly, the high-level Undying Saint's expression changed drastically. This was because the scene he wanted to see of Murong Yu's fist being shattered by his own fist did not appear. His fist was shattered, but it was not Murong Yu's fist, but his own. Furthermore, after shattering Murong Yu's fist didn't even pause as it continued to press forward bravely. The high-level Undying Saint's arm was directly shattered. It was not until Murong Yu's punch blew up half of his body that he reacted. How can a 9th-level Great Saint have such powerful strength? I'm a 9th-level Undying Saint. At this moment, the high-level Undying Saint was stunned. Idiot! Being absent-minded during a battle was simply courting death. Murong Yu sneered, flipped his big hand, and directly grabbed the opponent's head. Then, he lifted the man up with one hand. The next moment, an incomparably huge force spurted out from his palm. Suddenly, the young man was blasted straight out of the oasis like a kite with a broken string. Ah! You can't kill! When he was thrown out by Murong Yu, the high-level Undying Saint finally reacted. He wanted to struggle, but all his strength was sealed by Murong Yu. So, with a swoosh, he rushed into the beast tide outside. The moment he entered the beast tide, the strength in his body recovered. Therefore, the high-level Undying Saint was overjoyed and was about to rush into the oasis. But Murong Yu could only see a sky full of ferocious beasts. He couldn't see which ferocious beast had killed the high-level Undying Saint. Even his soul was annihilated. What a terrifying beast tide! Looking at the vast beast tide outside, Murong Yu sighed. At this time, the other people in the oasis were all pale. They looked at the beast tide outside the oasis for a while, and then looked at Murong Yu for a while. Murong Yu's performance calmed some people, but more people were worried about the beast tide. Although they knew that the beast tide would not attack the oasis, who knew if there would be a mutation? Once the beast tide surged, they would die without a doubt. There was no way to escape. With a thought, everyone in the Hichu Luoshu came out. However, the moment they came out, except for the fearless little Loli, everyone else was so scared that their faces turned pale. Although the oasis isolated a part of the aura from the beast tide, the remaining aura still rushed over like a storm. Everyone in the small oasis felt like they were a lone boat in a stormy sea that could be torn apart at any time. Fierce beasts generally have crystal cores, and these crystal cores contain a huge amount of power. It's best to use them for cultivation, Murong Yu suddenly thought as he looked at the beast tide that kept flying past. If he wasn't a soul sage, he would definitely not have this idea, because he couldn't kill these beasts at all. But he had an extremely powerful soul attack with a thought. His soul pool surged like a volcano. It had to be said that after refining the souls of Bai Lin and the others, his soul pool had grown a little. But the liquefied soul power didn't increase much. In fact, as the soul pool grew bigger, so did the soul power. But Murong Yu was constantly compressing the soul power. This caused the liquefied soul power to become more condensed. Although the number was reduced, the power was much stronger than before. Whoosh! While everyone was trembling in fear as they watched the ferocious beasts fly by, Murong Yu's soul power had already torn through the void and rushed out of the oasis, locking onto an imperishable stage ferocious beast. Bang! The eternal stage fierce beast didn't even have time to react before its soul was crushed by Murong Yu. But what made Murong Yu depressed was that, after this ferocious beast was killed, it was smashed into millions of pieces by the ferocious beasts surging from behind. Not even the crystal core was left behind. It was so fast that Murong Yu didn't even have a chance to attack. You all stay here and don't move. I'll be back soon. After instructing the girls, Murong Yu strode to the edge of the small oasis. It was only a few steps away from the outside. Upon seeing Murong Yu, the ferocious beasts swept their gazes over and let out deafening roars. They wanted to kill Murong Yu, but they didn't dare to do it, because Murong Yu didn't leave the small oasis. Soul extermination! Murong Yu roared inwardly. His soul pool began to vibrate rapidly as streams of soul energy shot out like a torrent. Instantly, dozens of fierce beasts were enveloped. At the same time, Murong Yu's hand reached out, chi. The fierce beasts that were enveloped by Murong Yu's soul couldn't resist the attack of a 2-star soul power. Their souls were annihilated. They died in an instant. At the same time that they died, Murong Yu's large hand reached out to grab them. Whoosh! Murong Yu's speed was extremely fast. In less than an instant, he had already retracted his hand. Then he was pleasantly surprised to find that he had caught more than 10 fierce beasts this time. They were at least eternal stage fierce beasts, and there were even profound sage beasts. A brilliant smile appeared on Murong Yu's face. Although the harvest this time wasn't much, if he continued to attack, his harvest would definitely be shocking. I wonder how long the beast tide will last? Murong Yu thought to himself. At the same time, he dug out the crystal cores of the fierce beast. Seeing this, the other people in the small oasis looked at Murong Yu in shock. Everyone had an incredulous look on their faces. Murong Yu was only a great sage. How could he kill so many fierce beasts that were so much stronger than him? There were even some people who were ready to make a move. But reality told them that they weren't Murong Yu. Those who attacked were surprised to find that their attacks were crushed before they could even hit the ferocious beast. Murong Yu didn't pay attention to those who followed him. He stood at the edge of the small oasis and kept attacking. 20, 30, 50. Murong Yu killed more and more fierce beasts. In less than an hour, Murong Yu had harvested at least hundreds of fierce beasts. Suddenly, the people in the small oasis looked at Murong Yu with different eyes. Some were shocked, some were greedy, and some were disdainful. Suddenly Murong Yu stopped. It's too wasteful to kill their souls directly. I have to find a way to swallow their souls. A man who was never content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Have you finally stopped? He is not invincible. His power will eventually be exhausted. Seeing Murong Yu stop, the people in the small oasis couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Many of them had higher realms than Murong Yu, but they couldn't compare to Murong Yu. But before they finished sighing, Murong Yu stretched out his big hand again. Suddenly, those people's faces froze. Chapter 13:28. The beast tide lasted for half a month and still hadn't subsided. In the small oasis where Murong Yu was, everyone except for Murong Yu could only look at the beast tide in fear. They didn't gain anything. Occasionally, their greedy gazes would sweep past Murong Yu's body. Murong Yu was the only one who had gained anything. Moreover, his harvest was extraordinarily great. Half a month ago, Murong Yu had started killing the savage beasts that passed by. After half a month, the number of vicious beasts that he had killed and captured had reached hundreds of thousands. In other words, Murong Yu had at least hundreds of thousands of imperishable stage savage beasts' crystal cores. If he were in a place like White Sun City, his wealth would be enough to kill any family. In fact, this wasn't Murong Yu's biggest gain. After all, although there were many crystal cores, Murong Yu didn't have the time to refine them. Therefore, he was still at the peak of the 9th level of the Great Saint Realm. However, his battle prowess had increased by several folds, because his soul pool had more than doubled in size. Although he could only obtain less than 10% of the savage beasts' souls after killing them, how terrifying was 10% of the souls of hundreds of thousands of savage beasts. Moreover, these savage beasts were at least in the imperishable stage. Just 10% of the souls was probably more than 10 times the size of Murong Yu's soul pool. However, after refining them, Murong Yu's soul pool had only doubled in size. This was because Murong Yu had purified the souls of the savage beasts. Moreover, while refining, Murong Yu continued to condense them. Right now, his soul pool was more than 10 times more condensed than before he entered the small oasis. In other words, Murong Yu's soul pool was at least 10 times stronger than before. 2 stars, 2 levels of heaven. This was the current level of his soul pool. As his soul pool grew stronger, the speed at which he killed the savage beasts increased. The more savage beasts he killed, the more souls he could refine, and then his soul pool would become stronger. If this cycle continued, it wouldn't be a problem for his soul pool to reach 3 stars. However, while refining his soul pool, Murong-yu also felt quite helpless. If he wanted to improve his cultivation pool, he needed to refine hundreds or even thousands of times more power than ordinary people. And it wasn't only in terms of cultivation pool, but also in terms of soul pool. Because during this process, he also gave a part of his soul to Gongsun Ningyu to be refined. The amount of soul energy Gongsun Ningyu had refined wasn't even a tenth of Murong-yu's. However, her soul had already broken through from the level of 1 star to the 5th layer of 2 stars. Murong-yu's soul pool. On the other hand, Murong-yu had refined 10 times more soul power than him, yet he had only managed to raise his cultivation by a small realm. 10 times the soul pool's soul pool. In other words, Murong-yu's soul pool was at least 100 times more than Gongsun Ningyu's. However, Murong-yu's soul pool was more difficult to improve, but Gongsun Ningyu couldn't compare to the amount of soul pool he absorbed. Even if Gongsun Ningyu's soul pool was 3 levels higher than Murong-yu's, her attack power was far inferior to Murong-yu's. It wasn't even 1/10 of Murong-yu's. Murong-yu had a feeling that his soul pool was absolutely invincible among those of the same level. Unless the opponent's soul pool reached 3 stars, it was impossible to be his opponent. It was precisely because of this that Murong-yu didn't get tired of cultivating his soul pool. Otherwise, he would have given up long ago. After all, it was better to focus on improving his cultivation pool than to multitask. It even seemed that his physical body needed to be improved. Time continued to pass, and the beast tide continued. However, the savage beasts passing by were getting stronger and stronger. At this time, even undead stage savage beasts were rarely seen. Most of them were profound sage and ancient sage realm savage beasts, but there were also many Saint King realm savage beasts. Occasionally, there would even be an ancestor sage-level savage beast flying by. Even if the supreme pressure of an ancestor sage-level superpowerhouse couldn't completely penetrate into the small oasis, it still suppressed everyone in the small oasis. Their physical body and soul pool were almost crushed. However, Yu Mengqing and the others had all entered the Hichu Luoshu world to cultivate. Only Murong-yu was working diligently. After nearly a month of refining crystal cores to improve their cultivation pool, and under the effect of time acceleration, the strength of the girls was rapidly improving. From the original First Order Sage, they quickly rose to the peak of the Ninth Order Sage, and even broke through to the Great Sage realm one after another. In the Holy World, they broke through to the Great Sage realm in a month. This speed was even faster than Murong-yu's. This made Murong-yu a little puzzled. This was, when a man achieves the Tao, his chickens and dogs will also ascend to heaven. As long as one of Murong-yu's people became stronger, then the others would have a lot of resources to cultivate. As long as there were enough resources, even a pig's cultivation pool could be quickly accumulated. What's more, Mu Liue and the others' aptitudes weren't bad, and could even be considered geniuses. When Yi's cultivation pool had finally recovered, and even broke through, reaching the peak of the Ninth Order Undead realm. This should have been something worth celebrating. However, after seeing Murong-yu's strength, Wen Yi couldn't feel happy at all. Following Murong-yu's side, there were many benefits, but one also had to be prepared to be attacked at any time. Although Murong-yu never intended to attack anyone. However, every single aspect of him was indeed a huge blow to others. Sometimes, Wen Yi even sympathized with Yu Mengqing and the others. Living with Murong-yu, wouldn't it be a big blow to them? For a month, the rest of the people in the small oasis were on tenterhooks and were scared half to death. Only Murong-yu and the others' cultivation pool continued to improve. If those people knew that Yu Mengqing and the others had improved by a large cultivation pool in just a month, would they go crazy and kill them? 3 months. The beast tide lasted for 3 months before it finally subsided. As for Murong Yu, the number of crystal cores he had obtained had reached a whopping 2,000,000. This was because the beasts in the last 2 months were getting stronger and stronger, and Murong Yu found it difficult to kill them. Otherwise, with the strength of the first month, Murong Yu's current strength, killing more than 10 million beasts was not a problem at all. However, although the crystal cores he obtained decreased sharply, in terms of quality, they were incomparable to the beasts he had killed before. And after 3 months of continuous refining and using soul power to attack, Murong Yu's soul power had reached the peak of the second star fifth firmament. Although he had only improved by 4 small cultivation tiers in 3 months, his soul power's attack power was now dozens of times stronger than the second star first firmament. In the Holy World, the strength of each small cultivation tier would be 10 times stronger than the previous cultivation tier. But the reality was not so. It was true that the strength of each cultivation tier would skyrocket, but the increase was absolutely not that terrifying. For example, if the strength of the first level Great Sage was 1, then at the second level, the increase would be 10 times, reaching 10 times. Then at the third level, would it break through 10 times? Reach 100? Or 100 times of the first level Great Sage? And at the fourth level, it would reach 1,000 times of the first level? In this way, the difference between cultivation tiers was at least 100 million times. No matter how strong Murong Yu was, could he kill a powerhouse that was 100 million times stronger than him? That was impossible. Therefore, the actual situation was that every cultivation tier was compared to the cultivation tier of the first level. The second level was 10 times stronger than the first level, and the third level was 20 times stronger. In other words, every cultivation tier, the strength would double. And if it was a cultivation tier, it would be 100 times stronger. For example, the strength of a first-level Great Sage was at least 100 times stronger than a 9th-level Great Sage. And the difference between a saint and an undead realm powerhouse was at least 10,000 times stronger. This was why there were very few people in the Holy World who could fight across cultivation tiers, especially across cultivation tiers. Murong Yu's strength and physical body combined could only allow him to fight across cultivation tiers. He could not fight across cultivation tiers, and if it was combined with soul attacks, he could fight across cultivation tiers. This was because of the uniqueness of soul power. Soul attacks are at least 50 times stronger than before entering the small oasis. Now, I can easily kill a high-level undead realm saint, right? It's a pity that my cultivation and physical body did not improve. Murong Yu thought in his heart. Before entering the Death Desert, even Bai Lin, who was only at the first level undead realm, could block his soul attacks. But now, if he let them fight again, Murong Yu did not need to use other means at all. His soul power could directly attack and destroy the other party's soul easily. If his thoughts were known by others, even if they knew that they were no match for him, they would definitely kill him and beat him up. The beast tide has finally dissipated. Now it's time to find that place. Murong Yu had an idea and was about to release everyone from the Hichu Luoshu. But before he could move, he felt that the atmosphere in the void was a little strange. So he turned his head and looked behind him. Immediately, he saw dozens of people slowly closing in on him with malicious intentions. Murong Yu only glanced at them and sneered in his heart. They were all looking at Murong Yu with greedy eyes. It was obvious that now that the beast tide had retreated, they wanted to snatch Murong Yu's crystal cores. After all, those were about 2 million high-grade crystal cores. If they were to refine them, it would not be a problem for them to advance by 1 or 2 cultivation tiers. Kid, I don't want to think too much. Hand over all the crystal cores you have, and maybe we'll spare your life. Otherwise, you're on your own. A young man with a scar on his face slowly approached, his face full of greed. As he spoke, the centipede-like scar on his face began to move ferociously, making him look extremely terrifying. Chapter 1329. Murong Yu looked at everyone with a smile on his face. While Scarface was speaking, he was also looking at him with a smile. Scarface wasn't very strong. He was only a low-level undead realm expert and wasn't much of a threat to Murong Yu. In fact, there weren't many people present who could pose an absolute threat to Murong Yu. There were a few undead realm experts, but there were quite a few undead realm experts. There were more than 100 of them. There were even several profound sages among them. Before entering the small oasis, Murong Yu would have definitely fled without a trace if he didn't have the heavenly mist broken finger. But now, his strength had skyrocketed, and his soul had reached the second star fifth heavenly layer. With such strength, he wasn't afraid even when facing profound sage realm experts. Hand it over. Seeing that Murong Yu didn't say anything, he smiled confidently and said, "Hand it over." Scarface couldn't help but be furious. Although Murong Yu could kill undead realm experts, he couldn't hide the fact that he was still a great sage. Thus, the enraged Scarface took a step forward and suddenly appeared in front of Murong Yu. Then, he ruthlessly clawed at Murong Yu's head. The claw was fierce, and the sky was filled with claw shadows. In an instant, Murong Yu's whole body was wrapped up. A terrifying pressure crazily strangled Murong Yu. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Scarface didn't just want to take him down, he wanted to kill him. Therefore, the killing intent in his heart was ignited at this moment. Rumble, the soul pool, which had a radius of 200 miles, erupted like a volcano. Extremely condensed soul power shot out from between his eyebrows and intertwined into a huge net in the void. It rushed into Scarface's soul space, and then quickly strangled Scarface's soul. When Murong Yu's soul power entered Scarface's soul space, Scarface's hand was only halfway there. It was still a long way from Murong Yu's head. His speed was fast, but it was far from the speed of soul power. However, when Murong Yu's soul force entered Scarface's soul space, Scarface immediately reacted. In that instant, Murong Yu's face abruptly changed. The energy in his body surged into his spiritual space like a torrential flood, intending to destroy Murong Yu's spiritual force. At the same time, the speed of his outstretched hand naturally slowed down. He knew that as long as he killed Murong Yu's soul power would immediately dissipate. But he also knew that his speed was far inferior to Murong Yu's soul attack. Maybe he could kill Murong Yu, but before Murong Yu died, his soul would be torn apart. After weighing the pros and cons, Scarface decided to protect his soul first. If it was before entering the small oasis, Scarface quickly defended himself. Maybe he could really block Murong Yu's soul attack. But now Murong Yu's soul attack was nearly 50 times stronger than before. What kind of concept was 50 times? Originally, Green could completely block Murong Yu's soul attack. He needed Murong Yu to use God's descent to affect Scarface's mind. In the moment when Scarface was distracted, Murong Yu had the opportunity to rush out through the cracks in his power. But now, not to mention Green, even Scarface's power, who was a small level higher than Green, was completely unable to block Murong Yu's soul power. Rip, the sound of cloth tearing came from Scarface's soul space. Scarface's power was immediately torn apart. And Murong Yu's soul power was like a stormy sea, directly rushing through the tearing power and enveloping Scarface's soul in a flash. Scarface's soul was like a prehistoric ominous beast, swallowing it in one gulp. Scarface only had time to issue an earth-shattering scream, and then his whole body suddenly fell backwards, no longer having any aura of life. His soul had been swallowed by Murong Yu. How could there be any life left? Seeing this, the surrounding people were shocked, and one by one, they looked at Murong Yu with shocked eyes. Some of them were so scared that they involuntarily retreated a few steps. All this happened too quickly. From Scarface's attack to his death, not even a moment had passed. It was so short that everyone didn't know what was going on. You have the same plan as him? You want me to hand over the crystal nucleus? After killing Scarface, Murong Yu's gaze slowly swept over everyone's faces. Meeting Murong Yu's gaze, those undead powerhouses quickly retreated. Even some of the undead powerhouses retreated a few steps without leaving a trace. Only the few high-level imperishable realm and profound sage realm super powerhouses remained where they were, looking at Murong Yu with indifferent expressions. Boy, your strength is beyond my expectations. But if you think that you are invincible, you are gravely mistaken. Hand over the crystal nucleus, and I will let you live. A profound sage stepped forward, looking at Murong Yu indifferently. It was as if he wasn't looking at a person, but a corpse. Murong Yu looked at the other party indifferently and suddenly said, "You are a profound sage?" The profound sage nodded. "You just came from the desert of death?" Murong Yu asked another unrelated question. The profound sage was a little impatient, but he still nodded. But the cold light in his eyes was bursting with killing intent. Seeing the other party nod, Murong Yu suddenly smiled, and then his gaze slowly swept over everyone in the small oasis. "You also came from the outside not long ago?" No one answered, and they all looked at Murong Yu with puzzled eyes. Murong Yu still had a calm smile on his face. "Since you all came from the outside, you must know what this is, right?" While speaking, Murong Yu's big hand made a grabbing motion. In the next moment, a somewhat huge, severed finger appeared in his hand. When they saw the severed finger, the pupils of many people shrank, and they all showed hesitation on their faces. It seems that most of you recognize what this severed finger is? You are probably still doubtful, right? Yes, I am Murong Yu. Although I don't know if you came to kill me. But, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before Murong Yu finished speaking, many figures in the small oasis had already soared into the sky, turning into streams of light that tore through the void of the desert of death and fled into the distance. Among them, there was also the profound sage who had previously threatened Murong Yu. "You guys are really audacious. You actually dared to chase me. Now all of you will die for me." Seeing those people flee without fighting, Murong Yu almost couldn't help but laugh. But soon, his face turned cold, and with a roar, the severed finger suddenly soared into the sky. Murong Yu relied on this severed finger to easily kill profound sages. Thinking of the rumors about Murong Yu and seeing the severed finger soaring into the sky, the sages who hadn't yet fled panicked. Thus, without needing Murong Yu's reminder, they all spread out their figures and quickly fled towards the desert of death. However, there were still several undead sages who were killed by Murong Yu. When he raised the severed finger, a terrifying soul force had already seeped out of his body and locked onto everyone, tearing them apart. The gap in their souls made these people feel the aura of death. While the strong aura of death shrouded their hearts, they thought that it was the shock of the severed finger. Thinking of the terrifying legend of the severed finger, how could they still dare to stay here? In the blink of an eye, except for the few unlucky undead sages who were killed by Murong Yu, everyone else in the small oasis had fled. "It's a pity that I wasn't able to kill a single profound sage." Murong Yu shook his head and put the storage rings of the scar-faced man and the others into the Hichu Luoshu. But soon, he laughed involuntarily. Although his soul had reached the 5th stage of the 2-star realm, it wasn't very possible for him to kill a high-level undead sage. Unless he made another breakthrough and reached the peak of the 2-star realm, then he shouldn't have any pressure to kill a powerhouse at the peak of the undead stage. Murong Yu estimated that if his soul reached the 3rd-star realm, it wouldn't be impossible for him to kill a profound sage. It was precisely because of this that he used the severed finger to scare them away. If he didn't want to scare them away, Murong Yu could only do his best to kill a few mid-level undead stage powerhouses and then be chased down again. Murong Yu had had enough of being constantly chased down. Of course, using this method to scare those people away also made him feel uncomfortable. But there was no other way, limited by his strength, but he believed that one day, These juniors would be scared out of their wits when they heard his name, let alone try to kill him. Those bastards will probably react soon. I have to leave this place as soon as possible, Morongyu muttered, then soared into the air and shot toward the desert. Sure enough, not long after Morongyu left, a figure shot over from the distance and landed on the small oasis. It was the profound sage who had threatened Morongyu before but immediately fled. Damn it, he actually ran away. This profound sage's face was filled with anger, and his killing intent was overflowing. After being scared away by Morongyu, he quickly reacted. The severed finger was indeed powerful, but didn't it have no power? And he was actually scared away. How could he endure this? If news of this spread out, wouldn't he be laughed at by the world? After reacting, he immediately rushed back. But, whoosh, after this profound sage, a second profound sage shot over from the distance like a meteor. After knowing that Morongyu had fled, this person was somewhat depressed. But when he saw the first profound sage running away, a mocking smile appeared on his face. It was a typical case of the pot calling the kettle black. By the time these people returned to the small oasis, Morongyu was already far away from it. Under Wen Yi's lead, they quickly headed towards their destination. Chapter 1330. That's it. Somewhere in the desert of death, Morongyu and the rest looked at the scene in the distance with shock. Above their heads, they were staring at their sacred weapons. The power of the sacred weapons was pushed to the extreme, and rays of light shone down to protect them. As they went deeper into the desert of death, the temperature became higher. A few months ago, Yu Mengqing and the rest could not hold on any longer and took out their sacred weapons. Moreover, they kept going deeper, and even with their sacred weapons, they could barely resist the heat. However, the girls were stubborn. Even so, they did not hide in the Hichu Luoshu. Under such circumstances, it was equivalent to hard training, and the effect was better than ordinary training. Therefore, as time passed, the girls' strength began to increase. Although it was not obvious, they were still getting stronger. Moreover, they became more skilled in controlling the sacred weapons, and it was as if they were controlling their arms. Because of the girls, Morongyu's speed was slowed down. However, Morongyu did not say anything. The improvement of the girls' strength was the most important. Moreover, was he not going to improve his strength? Not far in front of them, there was a huge lake. Yes, there was a huge lake in the desert of death that stretched as far as the eye could see. In the lake, emerald green islands appeared in front of Morongyu and the rest, and they were full of vitality. From afar, Morongyu and the others could even see all kinds of animals and demonic beasts running about on the small island. Birds chirped and the fragrance of flowers bloomed. It was simply like a paradise. Outside the huge lake was the desert of death that stretched as far as the eye could see, and yellow sand filled the sky. Since the scenery was different, it had a strong visual impact. For a moment, Morongyu and the rest were shocked. Each of them was amazed by the magic of nature. That cultivation method is on one of the islands in the lake. Seeing the huge lake, Wen Yi became excited. Once they entered the lake, it meant that there was no danger. Of course, the so-called danger was relative to the desert of death. Since leaving the small oasis, Morongyu and the rest went around in the desert of death and encountered more than 10 death storms. Fortunately, his speed wasn't too bad. After discovering the death sandstorm, he immediately fled. Even if the death sandstorm was too strong, Morongyu and the little loli would work together to escape. Along the way, there were no mishaps. However, there was one time when they charged into the center of a deadly sandstorm. To be more precise, it was the death sandstorm that suddenly appeared where they were and swept in all directions. At that time, it was really thrilling. Morongyu's group was almost completely wiped out. Fortunately, Morongyu reacted quickly and pulled everyone into the Hichu Luoshu. Then, he teleported back to the small oasis where he had killed the dire beast. Sometimes, Murong Yu's group would even run into the nest of some ferocious beast. Being chased by some powerful beast. Murong Yu and the others did not encounter many human saints other than the death sandstorm and the ferocious beast. After all, the desert of death was too big. Moreover, there were not many people who entered the desert of death. It was really not easy to encounter them. After a few times, Murong Yu and the rest got lost in the desert of death again. When they arrived near the huge lake, it had been a year since they entered the desert of death. There are powerful beasts in the lake. We have to be careful. Moreover, the islands in the lake will constantly move. It's not easy to find the island where the cultivation method is among the billions of islands, when Yi continued to explain. Immediately, Murong Yu's group rose into the air and flew toward the huge lake. This lake is the same as the oasis. The desert's energy can't penetrate it? When the group entered the air above the lake, a refreshing aura hit them in the face. It made them feel refreshed. The environment here was the same as the outside of the holy world. There's a powerful cultivation method in here. Moreover, the environment here is not bad. Why doesn't anyone come here? Kurlan said doubtfully. Murong Yu's face darkened. He looked at Kurlan speechlessly and said, "Do you think ordinary people can easily pass through the desert of death and enter here?" Kurlan could not help but glare at Murong Yu and smile awkwardly. The reason why they could enter here was not only because of Murong Yu and the little lowly's speed, but also because of Hichu Luoshu. If it were not for these two reasons, they would have been torn to pieces by the death sandstorm. How could they have entered here? Moreover, they had only encountered a dozen death sandstorms. They were already extremely lucky. According to Wen Yi, he had encountered hundreds of death sandstorms when he left here the last time. If it were not for Wen Yi's luck, he would not have been captured and imprisoned by the Li family. He would have died in the desert of death. In fact, the reason why they could enter here in a year was not only because of the reasons mentioned above, but also because of Wen Yi. If it were not for this guy who knew the way and led them all the way here. If it were just Murong Yu and the others, they might not be able to enter here even if they were given another 10,000 years. Splash as they spoke, the originally calm lake suddenly surged with tens of thousands of waves. Amidst the waves, an incomparably huge octopus-like beast tore through the void and charged towards Murong Yu's group. The 8 of them had 8 claws. One of the claws pierced through the void and quickly clawed at them. What a greedy beast! You want to catch us all in one fell swoop? Murong Yu sneered. The soul pool in his soul space quickly went berserk. His soul power gushed out and was about to attack. However, before his soul power could rush out of his soul space, a black shadow shot out from beside him. Then, Murong Yu saw the shadow of a giant axe appear in the sky and slash down. Wen Yi's expression changed. He opened his mouth and was about to say, seeing the giant axe coming, the octopus monster's claw was like a long whip as it lashed out in the void. The sound of cloth tearing could be heard. The octopus monster's claw actually shattered the void and space fragments fell down. Boom! In a flash, the octopus monster's claw and the little girl's giant axe collided. After the earth-shattering explosion, there was an ear-piercing shriek. At this moment, when Yi finally spoke. "Don't hurt these beasts." However, when Yi's words were too late. This octopus monster was not very powerful. It was only in the eternal stage. After one of its claws was chopped off by the little girl, it let out an earth-shattering roar. The aura on its body surged crazily, and its other 7 claws danced wildly, smashing through the void as it charged fiercely toward the little lowly. The little girl's face was filled with excitement. The giant axe in her hand transformed into millions of axe shadows. She directly collided with the octopus monster and started fighting. The little girl had a powerful background and had all kinds of treasures on her. At this moment, she activated the power of one of the treasures. Rays of light burst out from her body and directly offset the octopus monster's aura. As long as she was not attacked by the octopus monster's aura would have no effect on her. Moreover, even if she was attacked, she would not be hurt. She would only be sent flying. However, the little girl's giant axe ignored the power of the octopus monster. Therefore, in a flash, the little girl's giant axe continuously slashed out and actually chopped off 3 of the octopus monster's remaining 7 claws. The octopus monster's claws did not regenerate. Instead, they kept spewing out black blood with a foul stench. However, the octopus monster became even more furious. Its shrill scream tore through the sky and spread far and wide, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. However, Murong-yu also noticed a phenomenon. After the octopus monster's claws were chopped off, its strength would drop significantly. After 4 of its claws were chopped off, its strength had dropped to the high-level undead stage. It was only about the 8th level of the undead stage. In this way, it was even less of a match for the little girl. Therefore, the little girl showed her invincible power and killed the octopus monster in a few breaths' time. Murong-yu was about to collect the octopus monster's soul and crystal core when he realized that the originally calm lake had begun to churn. In the distance, there were also extremely violent auras rushing over. They were all heading towards their location. "Run, the beast is coming." When Yi's face changed, Murong-yu's face also changed slightly. He did not have time to ask Yi what was going on. He waved his hand and directly put the girls into the Hichu Luoshu. Then, he spread his angelic wings and shot towards the depths of the lake. Roar! 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 Earth-shattering roars came, and at the same time, violent and terrifying auras rushed over, rushing towards Murong-yu. Murong-yu even saw the beasts rushing out from the depths of the lake, and then directly began to chase after him. Among them were the octopus monster and other kinds of monsters. "It seems that we have angered everyone?" Murong-yu turned into a stream of light and swept through the void, while his mind sank into the Hichu Luoshu and asked Yi. "The beasts here can't be killed because they are very vengeful. Moreover, the beasts are extremely united. Even if they are of different races, they will join forces to hunt down the enemy. We have just killed the octopus monster, so we have offended the beasts in this area." Murong-yu's heart sank. "Will the beasts in the entire lake chase after us?" "That won't happen. It's just a certain area. As long as we leave their area, they will stop chasing us. However, no one knows how big their area is," Yi said with a bitter face. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.